Chapter 1657. Zhen Weisheng sneered and said, "Of course we don't know. However, among the aura-refining disciples, his reputation is surprisingly good. He's surprisingly famous. Why is a chi-refining disciple so famous? Is it because of the Feather Immortal Assembly?" Zhen Meng was amused. He had never heard of a chi-refining disciple becoming famous because of the Feather Immortal Assembly, even if someone had won first place. "Let junior brother tell you about it," Zhen Weisheng said as he looked at the other disciples who were also surprised. Zhen Qikue sneered. "What is there to say? Isn't it because he took away my qualification to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly? A disciple of the myriad Thunder Valley dares to touch the whiskers of the tiger of Swallow, Thunder Ridge. This guy took away our qualification to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly?" A disciple sneered. "Back then, Xiang Yang humiliated our Swallow Thunder Ridge. Now there's Xiaohua. If we don't do anything, the other disciples will think that we are afraid of the myriad Thunder Valley." 11th brother. Zhen Weisheng scolded. "Xiaohua is in the limelight now. Many Foundation establishment disciples are also paying attention to him. Moreover, I heard that Martial Uncle Zhenqing has a good impression of him. If we do anything, we will cause trouble. Martial Uncle Zhenqing is from the Thunder Palace. How can he interfere with the internal affairs of the Thunder Palace?" 11th brother defended himself. Zhen Qikue sneered. "What good impression? Isn't it because of Xiaohua's hypocrisy? I have asked around. According to Wang Yanxiao, this guy offended the Changbai sect during the Feather Immortal Assembly. He took a lot of their elixirs and was chased after by them. It doesn't matter if they beat him, but the other disciples were also involved. He even pretended to leave the Thunderboat." "Humph, what do you mean by leaving?" "To put it bluntly, he abandoned the other disciples and ran away alone. How can such a person be favored by Martial Uncle Zhenqing? In short, during this period of time, don't do anything else." Zhen Wei warned. "Even if you want to vent your anger, wait until later." Hearing Zhen Weisheng's warning and seeing Zhen Qikue's anger, everyone was even more surprised. They put down their wine glasses and urged Zhen Qikue to tell them what had happened. Zhen Qikue had no choice but to grit his teeth and tell them what had happened at the Feather Immortal Gathering. Although he had only heard it from Wang Yanxiao, he felt that what Xiaohua had done should be what he had done. All of Xiaohua's achievements should be his achievements. Even Fairy Hong Xia's smile should be directed at him. Xiaohua, who was far away in the Eastern Mountain Range, didn't know that someone was actually thinking about him. While he was taking medicinal pills to cultivate, he also took out the Soul-Absorbing Bell's booklet and took the time to refine the Soul-Absorbing Bell. After all, Jingxin's attack and defense were too weak. In his hands, it could only be made into an ordinary celestial device. The cloud-suppressing seal was too strong and consumed a lot of Dharma power. There was also the Devil Hammer, which was his trump card. Unless he was in a life-or-death situation, he couldn't use it. As for the Prajna Heavy Sword and the Tongtian Staff Technique, Xiaohua didn't know what they were used for. After all, cultivators only use spells or celestial devices when fighting. Since he could get close to his opponent, the Devil Hammer could solve the problem. What was the use of the 360 moves of the staff technique? Another half a year passed quickly. It seemed that Xiaohua had a deeper understanding of cultivation because he had witnessed the foundation building of two chi-refining cultivators at the Feather Immortal Gathering. His cultivation speed was obviously much faster than before. In just half a year, he was about to step into the late stage of the 12th level of chi refining. Moreover, in this half a year, Xiaohua had read all the books in the other Thunder Palaces. There was only one Thunder Palace that he hadn't visited yet. In his opinion, Thunder Palace only accepted young female disciples, so the cultivation techniques inside probably couldn't compare to those of the other Thunder Palaces. He would just have to wait until he reached the Foundation establishment stage to take a look. On this day, Xiaohua was cultivating with his eyes closed. All of a sudden, Xiaohua felt that he couldn't move his limbs at all, and his entire mind was abnormally active. It was as if he only had this thought, and everything else was nothingness. Xiaohua was shocked. A kind of loneliness that he had never felt before grew and spread from his thoughts, gradually annihilating them. It couldn't be said to be dark, nor could it be said to be light. Xiaohua only felt that he, or perhaps his thoughts, were in an isolated space. In this space, Xiaohua's thoughts were as fast as light. He only had to think a little, and the darkness around his thoughts surged back like an avalanche. He clearly knew that this was darkness, but he also knew that he was moving. What's going on? Xiaohua was on guard. He couldn't bear the incomparable loneliness. He hurriedly tried to send his mind into the space to call out little yellow or little silver. However, no matter what, he couldn't sense where the space was. It was as if he was the only thing in this endless darkness. This is bad. As soon as this thought appeared in Xiaohua's mind, an indescribable sense of desperation and death filled the entire space. This sense of desperation and death seemed to originate from the space, and also from Xiaohua's thoughts. In short, Xiaohua felt that he had lost the meaning of his existence. As long as he lived in this world, he would become the butt of other people's jokes, the object of their ridicule. In an instant, the faces of Yun Jiechong, Wang Yunxiao, Kuan Fian, Qian Diheng, and the other disciples flashed before his eyes. How can an itinerant cultivator fight with us without any foundation? There are 3,000 great Daos, and even if we occupy 2,999 of them, that great Dao is definitely not yours. What's the point of you living? Why don't you immortalize earlier and reincarnate into a good backer? Xiaohua felt himself break out in a cold sweat. He knew that these things were meaningless, but he still roared hysterically. I may be an itinerant cultivator, but I also cultivate hard and work hard. Why can't I have the achievements that you all have? You all want me to die, but what are you all waiting for? Why don't you all die? Even if I'm going to die, I still want to kill all of you one by one. You want to kill all of us? The faces of the disciples suddenly disappeared. In the dark space, the faces of Fairy Hongxia and Shui flashed again. Fairy Hongxia said mournfully, "If you want to kill all of us, we won't fight back because we all love you. Since you made up your mind, this concubine will obey." Darling Xiao, my sister's thoughts are my thoughts. This concubine will also obey your wishes. Shui's eyes were filled with tears. Xiaohua seemed to have gone crazy. His entire mind shook for no reason, and a wave of sadness came from his thoughts. Don't worry. Even if I have the ability to kill all of you, I will definitely not make a move against you all. If I make a move against all of you, I will first kill myself. Is that so? Xiaohua, if that's the case, why don't you make a move? Zhang Zhihao, Yong Shang, Fan Dao Mao, and even Xiao Yuehong and Gong Mingwei's faces appeared. What's the meaning of your life? Cultivation, endless cultivation. In the end, won't your body still turn into a pile of dust? Even if you have endless divine powers, isn't there someone more divine than you? They can kill you with a wave of their hand. What's the meaning of your 100 years, 1,000 years of cultivation? Master, eldest senior brother. Xiaohua's tears fell. This disciple is useless. I know that 100 Herbs Gate is the culprit, but after so many years, I still can't do as I wish. Even senior sister is still bitterly holding on in 100 Herbs Gate. Master, since you can't do as you wish, then there's no need to do it. Master has never blamed you. Xiao Yuehong said with a smile. You should hurry up and come over. Master misses you very much. Your eldest senior brother and second senior brother also miss you very much. Is that so? Xiaohua was a little confused. Yes, it's very important. You only need to hit your own forehead with one hand, and all of your troubles will disappear. All of your worries will disappear. All of your teasing will disappear. Gong Mingwei said with a smile. It's that simple? It's that simple. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, Xiaohua let out a long howl. His thoughts spun rapidly, and he actually set off a boundless spatial storm. Countless dark colors and innumerable faces were sucked into it. A faint human figure appeared in the space. The figure pointed one hand to the sky and the other to the earth. It was Xiaohua's image. I only cultivate based on my heart. Whether it's love or hate, It's also my nature. Whether it's the 3,000 great Taos or the 30,000 great Taos, what does it have to do with me? I'm only cultivating for myself. I'm only working hard for this life. No matter what the result is, no matter how difficult the process is, I only have a clear conscience. I'm only worthy of the heavens. I'm only worthy of the earth. I'm only worthy of this life as a human, whether it's life or death. What does it have to do with me now? I have a place to come from when I was born and a place to go when I die. Why should I think about it now? Wait for the inner demons to return to their respective places. Don't disturb this young master anymore. Otherwise, whether it's immortals or Buddhas, I'll kill them all. An indifferent aura and an indomitable momentum instantly engulfed the entire space. At the same time, an extremely brilliant brilliance was born from the space. Xiaohua suddenly felt that he could move. His thoughts were pulled out of the space. When he opened his eyes, what he saw was a ray of newly born sunlight outside the cave. Inner demons. That was close. Xiaohua suddenly woke up. He touched his face, which was covered in sweat. He looked at his Taoist robe, which was completely soaked in sweat, as if it was fished out of water. Just when Xiaohua's thoughts were pulled out of the space within the Buddha's heart, the Buddha's fire formed by the Buddha's light suddenly trembled. Then it flickered 9 times, and there were no more changes. Helplessness was right. The cloud-suppressing seal had been tempered by the Buddha's fire and the Buddha's compassionate heart, so it had an unbreakable, imprisoning power. Xiaohua's Buddha's light, which was formed by killing people and saving people, was the foundation of the karmic fire. Xiaohua originally had the dragon bloodline and the phoenix body, so cultivating Taoism shouldn't cause inner demons to appear. However, he had condensed the Buddha's relic. Furthermore, the Buddha's relic gave birth to a compassionate heart and endless karmic fire. This kind of Taoism involved reincarnation and karmic hindrances, which brought endless variables to his cultivation. Chapter 1658. Late stage of the 12th layer of Qi refining. Xiaohua checked his cultivation and was slightly surprised. According to his previous progress, he would have to wait for another 1 or 2 months. But thinking about the thrilling experience just now and the experience he had never experienced before, Xiaohua still had a trace of lingering fear in his heart. He really couldn't imagine what kind of situation he would have fallen to if he hadn't made a prompt decision at that time and resolutely shouted the oath of meet God, kill God, meet Buddha, kill Buddha. Sure enough, the greater the effort, the greater the harvest. Xiaohua thought to himself, but this kind of inner demon is too insidious. I've cultivated for many years and never encountered it, but I actually encountered it last night. Dark night is indeed the weakest time for cultivators. Even in the dark night, cultivators can see as if it's daytime. Just as Xiaohua was sighing with emotion, he felt that the spell formation of the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden was activated. He picked up the token and opened the spell formation. A red sound transmission talisman flew in. When Xiaohua crushed it, a familiar voice came from it. Congratulations on returning from the Feather Immortal Gathering. Little junior brother. Haha, big senior brother has come out of seclusion. Xiaohua somersaulted in the air and said with a smile. Then, without hesitation, he closed the spell formation and used the hibernating thunder escape to fly in the direction of the myriad Thunder Valley. When his figure disappeared in the distant sky, behind the white clouds, a ripple of space flashed and a cultivator wearing a camouflage robe appeared. He whispered in surprise, "This little cultivator actually knows the thunder escape technique? That's really rare." Then, the camouflage cultivator looked at the spell formation of the Eastern Ridge and flew in another direction. Surprisingly, he also used the hibernating thunder escape technique. Ha, big senior brother, congratulations on coming out of seclusion. Before Xiaohua arrived, he felt a few divine senses sweep over and shouted loudly. Ha, it's all thanks to little junior brother. I have to thank little junior brother. Xiang Yang flew into the air. He was at the middle stage of foundation establishment. Xiaohua had a smile on his face. This is eldest senior brother's good fortune. It has nothing to do with this little brother. The heavens are just borrowing this little brother's hand to give that thing to eldest senior brother. Xiaohua followed Xiang Yang into the cave. After greeting his master and master's wife, they took their seats. Xiang Yang said, I've already heard about Junior Brother's performance at the Feather Immortal Conference. Today, seeing that Junior Brother has already reached the late stage of the 12th layer of Qi refining, I'm sure you've gained a lot at the Feather Immortal Conference. I'm really happy for Junior Brother. Foundation establishment is just around the corner. Xiaohua said seriously, before I went to the Feather Immortal Assembly, I didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I thought that once I had enough magic power, building my foundation would be a piece of cake. However, after I went to the Feather Immortal Assembly, I realized that building my foundation was far more difficult than I thought. In the entire Feather Immortal Assembly, there were more than 200 cultivators in the late stage of the 12th layer of the Qi refining realm, but there were only a dozen or so who built their foundation. Building your foundation really depends on fate. Here you go. Xiang Yang, who had been silent all this time, glanced at Xiaohua helplessly. He raised his hand, and a jade slip flew to Xiaohua. This is... Xiaohua took it and looked at it with his divine sense. He raised his head and said, Master, this is a cultivation technique? Yes. Do you still remember the embryonic breathing pill you gave me before you left? I exchanged it with that thing. Xiang Yang waved his hand helplessly, as if he had done something extremely insignificant. Master, embryonic breathing pill actually exchanged for a foundation establishment cultivation technique. This transaction is really good, Xiaohua said with a smile. He was naturally very grateful in his heart. Isn't it because he owes me a favor? That person urgently needs this embryonic breathing pill. So he took out this cultivation technique. Xiang Yang rolled his eyes at Xiaohua helplessly. Do you think it's easy to get a foundation establishment cultivation technique? Then he asked again, You must have also gone to the 8 Great Lightning Palaces library during this time. Did you see any suitable cultivation techniques? Master, apart from Exchange Thunder Palace, I went to the other lightning palaces. I saw many cultivation techniques and memorized many of them. However, I felt that there was a suitable one. I still haven't. Xiaohua said with a smile. Don't go to Exchange Thunder Palace. A group of young female cultivators cultivate there. I'm afraid there aren't any good cultivation techniques. Master has seen this cultivation technique before. It's a high-grade fire tribute cultivation technique. It's the most reliable. After you reach foundation establishment, you should cultivate this one. Furious Flame Arts. Perhaps it's really suitable for disciples' concealed flame body. Xiaohua smiled and stored the jade slip into his space. Xiaohua, where's Shui? Yan Qinglian said with a smile. I heard Master's wife say that after you left, she came a few times. Senior sister-in-law seems you haven't seen her yet? Presumably, Zhu Mingwei had already told Yan Qinglian about this matter. Xiaohua's face flushed. Senior sister-in-law, if I don't reach foundation establishment and Shui doesn't reach foundation establishment, everything is nonsense. Good. Helplessly, he clapped his hands. This old man also wanted to remind you a bit. This place where the soul of a beauty disappears is the grave of a hero. In the past, cultivation was the most important thing. I didn't expect you to have such awareness. It's worthy of celebration. Zhu Mingwei and Yan Qinglian's faces were both slightly red. Subsequently, everyone changed the topic. Xiaohua toasted his master and master's wife several cups of wine, then toasted Xiang Yang and Yan Qinglian several more cups of wine. Only then did he follow Xiang Yang into their immortal's cave. After waiting for Xiaohua to sit properly, Xiang Yang tidied up his clothes and walked in front of Xiaohua. He cupped his hands and said, Junior Martial Brother, you and I are martial brothers. However, this time, the thing that Junior Martial Brother gave Senior Martial Brother is really too precious. The help it gave Senior Martial Brother is really too great. Senior Martial Brother doesn't have anything to repay. Senior Martial Brother. Seeing this, Xiaohua promptly got up and raised his hand to support his slightly slow-witted senior martial brother. He angrily said, "Senior martial brother, what are you doing? If junior martial brother has something to give to master and you, who else can I give it to?" At the side, Yin Qinglian pursed her lips and said with a smile, "Naturally, I can also give it to master's wife and senior marshal's sister." He, of course. Master's wife and senior marshal's sister actually forgot. Xiaohua said with a smile, "Senior marshal brother, look, even senior marshal's sister knows. Why are you treating me like an outsider? If you salute me like this, wouldn't it damage junior marshal brother's Dao heart? And I won't be able to reach foundation establishment again?" Xiangyang circulated his magic power and insisted on kneeling. However, after kneeling a few times, he still didn't succeed. He also knew that Xiaohua's arm strength was very great and far from what he could match. He could only get up and say, "Then senior marshal brother is ashamed to accept it. No, no, senior marshal brother, junior marshal brother still has something to ask senior marshal brother for help with." As he spoke, Xiaohua took out the Tai green light rod and the jade slip. When Xiangyang heard that there was something he could help with, his face was overjoyed. He said, "What do you need me for? Do you want me to refine this magic tool again?" "No, no." Xiaohua promptly waved his hand and said, "Senior marshal brother, you only need to follow the method on this jade slip and take out the Tai green light from this magic tool." Tai green light. Not only was Xiangyang stunned, Yin Qinglian was also stunned. She asked curiously, "What do you want this Tai green light for?" Yin Qinglian rolled her eyes a few times and said with a smile, "I'm afraid it has nothing to do with cultivation." Xiaohua scratched his head and said, "Senior marshal brother and senior marshal sister don't ask about this. If it had anything to do with cultivation, junior marshal brother would have already gone to find master." Sigh. Xiangyang took the jade slip and said, "Senior marshal brother also doesn't know if helping you like this is right or wrong. Don't worry, senior marshal brother. Junior marshal brother has a plan in mind." Xiaohua smiled and took out the corpse and blood of the lizard beast. He said to Yin Qinglian, "Senior marshal's sister, junior marshal brother's luck is pretty good. I actually encountered a lizard beast. How about we each take half of this fur and blood?" It's really a lizard beast?" Yin Qinglian's face turned pale. Although this spirit beast strength is only at the qi refinement stage, it's good at hiding and seems to know an escape technique. Even the escape technique of the 5 elements can't catch up to it. How did Junior Marshal Brother catch it? When Junior Marshal Brother saw it, this lizard beast seemed to have already been injured by someone. The person chasing it wasn't nearby, so Junior Marshal Brother took advantage of it for nothing. "Okay." Yin Qinglian nodded and took the lizard beast. She seemed to be quite skilled in separating the fur and flesh. Then, she used a technique to collect the blood into 2 jade bottles. Afterwards, she gave half of the fur in a jade bottle to Xiaohua and said with a smile, "Junior Marshal Brother, could it be that you also want to refine talismans?" Junior Marshal's sister, Junior Marshal Brother indeed has this idea. However, Junior Marshal Brother is afraid that Master will say that I don't do proper work. Xiaohua nodded and said, You already have the method to refine an invisibility talisman. Although the method to deal with the fur is low level, it is still essential. Wait a moment, Senior Marshal's sister will make a copy for you." Xiaohua took the things and said with a smile, "Many thanks, Senior Marshal's sister." When Yin Qinglian handed the copied jade slip to Xiaohua, Xiangyang at the side also finished reading the jade slip. He slightly shook his head and said, "This Tai Azure Light extraction method is quite marvelous. If it wasn't for Senior Marshal Brothers' cultivation base being in the middle stage of foundation establishment and greatly improved, it would really be somewhat troublesome to extract it." As he said this, he urged the magic power in his hand, and several complicated techniques hit the Tai Azure Light Rod. When the Tai Azure Light Rod emitted a faint azure light, Xiangyang shouted loudly, "Absorb!" Xiangyang's right hand grabbed at the Tai Azure Light Rod floating in the air, and a bucket-sized azure light slightly flowed out of the rod. As soon as the azure light appeared in the air, an extremely sharp feeling pierced everyone's eyes and skin. Great, Xiao Hua sighed inwardly. This innate golden energy is the best for refining flying swords. Xiao Hua took the Tai azure light from Xiang Yang's hand, opened his mouth, and cultivated the Tai azure light into his mouth. Then, he moved it to the Buddha's Sarura outside his Naiwan palace and placed it together with the Buddha's fire, enveloping the 9 sword orbs. They were only nourished by the Tai azure light at all times and refined by the limitless karmic fire. He didn't know when these 9 sword orbs would be able to nurture sword spirits. And he also didn't know how earth-shattering the power of the flying swords refined by the limitless karmic fire would be. Next to the 9 sword orbs, the shabby small bucket was also floating obliquely, and the limitless karmic fire was also refining it brilliantly. Staying in Xiang Yang's cave, the 3 of them chatted for a while about the Feather Immortal Assembly. Xiao Hua also asked some questions about cultivation, especially about inner demons, and how to avoid qi deviation. Only then did he bid farewell to Xiang Yang and Yin Qinglian, flying back to the eastern Ridge Her Garden. Chapter 1659. She had no choice, but to give Xiao Hua the art of wrath was indeed a first-rate cultivation method. Among the foundation establishment cultivation methods, Xiao Hua had seen in the 7 lightning palaces, although it wasn't in the top 10, it was definitely in the top 20. Moreover, the meridians cultivated by the art of wrath were obviously a bit more than other cultivation methods. If he could use it to build his foundation, his magic power would definitely be a bit stronger than others of the same level. Alas, masters really consider it. Xiao Hua sighed with emotion as he put the art of wrath into his space. Another month passed, and Xiao Hua's realm steadily increased. However, Xiao Hua's heart was somewhat impetuous. After all, he was a disciple who had been to the Feather Immortal Assembly. He had seen hundreds of disciples who were stuck in the 12th layer of the Qi refinement realm and couldn't step into the foundation establishment realm. Xiao Hua was faintly afraid that he would also reach the end of the 12th layer of the Qi refinement realm and couldn't take another step forward. This fear was without reason. Xiao Hua also knew in his heart, but he just couldn't get rid of it. Perhaps it's an inner demon. Xiao Hua thought of his previous experience, so he simply stopped cultivating and took out the lizard's fur and blood. He carefully processed them according to the jade slip that Yin Qinglian gave him. Then he took out the refining method that matched the invisibility talisman that was given to him. He carefully studied it and then slowly refined it. The refining of this talisman was naturally much more difficult than the yellow talisman. The drawing of the talisman, the introduction of spiritual energy, and the formation of the talisman were all abnormally complicated. It was far from what Xiao Hua had thought before. Therefore, Xiao Hua spent dozens of days pondering how to refine the invisibility talisman while cultivating the Buddha's Sarira. In these dozens of days, the invisibility talisman was finally refined successfully, and the Buddha's Sarira also had a bit of progress. In particular, Xiao Hua's realm was still slowly increasing. Although it wasn't as obvious as before when he deliberately cultivated, it still made Xiao Hua's heart quite at ease. The invisibility talisman Xiao Hua refined was similar to the one he got from Kai Yuxia. It could only conceal oneself without using magic power. As long as magic power was activated, one's body would immediately be exposed. Nothing in this world is perfect. Xiao Hua looked at the sparkling invisibility talisman in his hand and sighed inwardly. After putting away the invisibility talisman, Xiao Hua had some thoughts again. He had already been to 7 of the 8 Great Thunder Palace's library pavilions. Only the converted Thunder Palace's library had yet to be visited. Although he had helplessly said that he didn't need to go, Xiao Hua still felt unsatisfied in his heart. Forget it, I'll go take a look. Otherwise, I'll regret it later. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua opened the array formation and used the hibernating thunder escape to head towards the converted Thunder Palace. Naturally, converging Thunder Palace was as heavily guarded as Sun Thunder Palace. Before he could even get close, a beautiful female cultivator around 15 or 16 years old blocked his path. Hey, where did this brat come from? Why are you here at my converging Thunder Palace instead of staying in Jin Thunder Palace? Xiao Hua. When that female cultivator saw Xiao Hua's face, she actually called out his name. Xiao Hua himself was also stunned. He looked up and down at that female cultivator. She was only in the 8th or 9th layer of the aura refining realm. It seemed that he had never seen her before. Could it be that my name has actually spread to converted Thunder Palace? In an instant, Xiao Hua's little tail stuck up high. This junior martial sister. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Junior martial sister's appearance seems somewhat unfamiliar to me. How did you recognize me? That female cultivator covered her mouth and laughed. You naturally can't recognize me, but I just happened to recognize you. Xiao Hua scratched his head, looking somewhat shy. Could it be that brother's reputation in the Imperial Thunder Sect is so great? Puffed. That female cultivator laughed out loud. She actually used her hand to cover her face and laughed. Senior Marshal Brother Zhao's skin is really thick. I'm afraid that even Fairy Hong Xia can't stand it. Soon after, she saluted and said, I am Dui Ling. Could it be that Senior Marshal Brother Xiao has already forgotten? Dui Ling? Xiao Hua was stunned. After thinking for a moment, he slapped his forehead and said, so it's Junior Marshal's sister Dui Ling. After not seeing you for so many years, you've indeed become more and more beautiful. It's natural that Brother Xiao couldn't recognize you. Senior Marshal Brother Xiao has such a sweet mouth. Dui Ling smiled and said, When Senior Marshal Brother Xiao entered the sect that day, I didn't know so much. I made Senior Marshal Brother Xiao go through so much trouble. I've always wanted to find an opportunity to apologize. A few days ago, when I heard that Senior Marshal Brother Xiao shocked the Feather Immortal Gathering, I was secretly delighted. After all, I was the one who chose Senior Marshal Brother Xiao. I also contributed imperceptibly. This young girl was naturally the girl who took the first test of physical attributes when Xiao Hua entered the Imperial Thunder Sect. She was only 11 or 12 years old back then, but she had already grown up in the past few years. Junior Marshal's sister, Dui Ling, is right. If not for Junior Marshal's sister's discerning eyes, how could Brother Xiao enter the Imperial Thunder Sect? Xiao Hua naturally said with a smile. All right, I wonder what Brother Xiao is doing in my Dui Thunder Palace? It's my turn to be on duty today. Senior Marshal Brother Xiao, please explain. Dui Ling smiled and asked with a serious expression. Brother Xiao has something to do at the Imperial Thunder Palace's library. Here is the Sect Master's token as proof. Junior Marshal's sister, please lead the way. Xiao Hua said and handed over the Sect Master's token. Dui Ling didn't have divine perception and naturally couldn't see the contents of the token. Seeing that it was undoubtedly the Sect Master's token, he smiled and said, Senior Marshal Brother Xiao, please follow me. As he spoke, he flew forward, and Xiao Hua followed beside him. Along the way, Dui Ling was very curious and asked many questions about the Feather Immortal Gathering, especially about Fairy Hong Xia's cultivation and appearance. It was obvious that he was eager to compete with her. It wasn't until he saw red bricks and green tiles covered by green bamboos and a female cultivator around the 11th level of Qi refinement that Xiao Hua bid farewell to Dui Ling while sweating profusely. He was secretly criticizing in his heart. Why are all the women in the world the same? Dui Ling is an outstanding disciple of the Imperial Thunder Palace, but he can't be free from vulgarity. Why does he always feel that he's not inferior to others? Let's not talk about appearance first. Just the difference in cultivation isn't just a little bit. What's there to compare? The library of the Imperial Thunder Palace was different. It was actually the same as the library of the secular world. The books were placed in different academies according to the cultivation level. Xiao Hua used the Sect Master's token to enter the academy where the foundation establishment cultivation techniques were kept. In the previous 10 days, Xiao Hua hurriedly flipped through many cultivation techniques. Just as Dui Ling said, there weren't many high-grade cultivation techniques. Most of them were extremely ordinary cultivation techniques. On this day, Xiaohua picked up a jade slip from a row of tables according to the order. He casually sat cross-legged and immersed his divine perception into it. He roughly read through it. This was still a low-grade foundation establishment cultivation technique. The more Xiaohua read, the more he read. When he reached the end, he sighed and withdrew his divine perception. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. His entire body shook violently, and an incredulous expression appeared on his face. He hurriedly immersed his divine perception into the last part of the cultivation technique. Xiaohua looked at it several more times. This cultivation method was indeed not rare, but what was strange was that it tempered the meridians. The majority of these meridians were the same as other foundation establishment cultivation methods, but the last part was different from the others. And this last part was what shocked Xiaohua the most, because, according to Xiaohua's understanding of the meridians, this part was connected to the last part of the heavenly laws embodiment technique. In other words, if the meridians of this cultivation technique were connected to the heavenly laws embodiment technique, besides the seal meridians of the qi condensation realm, there would be another meridian circulation. Moreover, these two circulation meridians were connected. Of course, this connection wasn't obvious. If it weren't for Xiaohua's familiarity with meridians, he wouldn't have noticed it. Sure enough, I felt that there were meridians after the qi condensation realm. I really saw it here. Xiaohua couldn't help but think of the question he previously asked Dui Ling Tian. However, he immediately smiled bitterly. Even if he knew, what use would it be? Could it be that he really had to stop foundation establishment and continue cultivating qi condensation? However, that bitter smile didn't disappear from his face. This outrageous thought actually grew strongly in his mind. Why can't I? I have the medicinal power of the clear flower pill in my meridians and a few fire essence flame crystals that I haven't used yet. I have plenty of methods to increase my magic power and realm. If I were to temper my meridians with one more circulation than others, wouldn't my magic power be denser than those of the same realm for no reason? Alas, who knows how many times? My magic power already far exceeds those of the same realm. If I have this circulation of meridians, then to what extent can I surpass them? Even foundation establishment might not necessarily be able to compare to me. Even if it's the true origin of one meridian, it can't be stronger than the true qi of 2 or even 3 meridians, right? Besides, if I cultivate like this, my realm will be much lower than others, but my magic power will far surpass theirs. No matter if it's a real fight or if I'm risking my life, it's all a disguise so that people won't pay too much attention to it. Thinking back to the Feather Immortal Assembly, didn't Zhu Beibei of the Profound Sky sect see that my realm wasn't high enough, so she was careless? But this is a complete set of foundation establishment cultivation techniques. Can I use it when I'm cultivating qi? If I were to completely cultivate them, how long would I have to cultivate? That's someone else's foundation establishment cultivation technique. If Master were to find out, wouldn't he peel off my skin? He's in a hurry to let me build my foundation. Thus, Xiaohua was in a dilemma, and he actually sat there blankly for as long as 2 hours. In the end, Xiaohua sighed. Alas, I'd better memorize it first. I'll think about it again when I build my foundation. This time, Xiaohua didn't dare to be careless. He carefully memorized the cultivation technique in the jade slip from beginning to end. This foundation establishment cultivation technique was different from qi refinement cultivation technique. It wasn't divided into several layers, but was instead divided into 3 stages. Not only did Xiaohua memorize the meridians, he also memorized the tempering method for each layer. After memorizing it from beginning to end several times and making sure that he didn't miss anything, he placed the jade slip on the table. Soon after, Xiaohua finished reading the last few cultivation techniques, but he didn't discover anything else. Only then did he stand up and withdraw from the Thunder Conversion Palace's library, flying back to the Eastern Mountain Range's medicinal garden with a belly full of worries. Right after he left, a Foundation establishment female cultivator appeared in the library. She picked up the jade slip that Xiao Hua had read several times and looked at it again and again. Her face was also filled with bewilderment. Prairie fire cultivation technique? Is this kind of crude cultivation technique worth reading for so long? Soon after, she placed the jade slip back on the table and walked out of the library. Chapter 1660. As soon as Xiao Hua left Dui Lei Palace, he flew towards the Eastern Ridge Her Garden while taking out a blank jade slip. He used his divine sense to record the cultivation method bit by bit into the jade slip. By the time he returned to the Eastern Ridge Her Garden, he had already finished recording the cultivation method. Looking at the sparkling jade slip in his hand, it was really like a piece of chicken rib. If he wanted to eat it, he was afraid that his master would scold him. If he didn't eat it, he was afraid that he would regret it in the future. In the blink of an eye, another half a year passed. On this day, Xiao Hua was cultivating when the formation outside the mountain vibrated. Xiao Hua opened the formation and a messaging talisman flew in. When Xiao Hua crushed it, he heard Xue's voice. Xiao Hua, I haven't heard from you in a long time. Are you building your foundation? I didn't dare to disturb you. Today, I reached the late stage of qi refining and specially sent you a message. If I disturbed you, please forgive me. Seeing Xue's message, Xiao Hua felt a burst of sweetness in his heart. He said a few words and also told her about his situation. Then, he clapped his hand and sent the messaging talisman back. I wonder how Fairy Hongxia is doing. Xiao Hua looked at the bright sunlight outside the mountain, and his heart was also worried. At the same time, he understood that if he didn't build his foundation, if he didn't have a great cultivation, Fairy Hongxia's matter would only be a waste of time. Even if Fairy Hongxia had deep feelings for him, how could the washing flower sect agree? Cultivation. Cultivation. In the cultivation world, everything is decided by strength. Xiao Hua sighed. Another 10 days passed. Xiang Yang and Yin Qinglian came to the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden together. Xiao Hua opened the formation. It turned out that the two were helplessly sent out to protect Xiao Hua's foundation. Looking at the two middle-stage foundation establishment cultivators, Xiao Hua was very moved. He bowed and thanked them. Eldest senior brother and senior sister came to protect me. Little brother is really grateful. Why are you saying so much nonsense when we're family? Xiang Yang looked at Xiao Hua's cultivation and waved his hand. It seems that Master's estimation was a bit too early. How about this? Your senior sister and I won't go back. We'll cultivate in your cave. When you build your foundation, we'll go out. Go out. Xiao Hua was stunned. Junior brother, the spiritual energy here is chaotic and the fire spiritual energy is violent. How can you build your foundation? I'm afraid that a large amount of spiritual qi of heaven and earth entering your meridians will be detrimental to your foundation establishment. Yin Qinglian smiled and said, besides, the 10,000 Thunder Valley won't work either. The silent thunder and the loud thunder are too powerful, so they're not suitable for foundation building. Master has already found a good place for you to build your foundation near the Eastern Mountain Range. As long as you show signs of building your foundation, we can go there. Sigh, this little brother really didn't think about it. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Master, that old man, is really thoughtful. It's also because of your eldest senior brother's matter. This time, Master is especially concerned. Master's wife won't say much. You just need to focus on your cultivation. Everything here will be taken care of by your eldest senior brother and Master's wife. After that, Xiang Yang took the Eastern Ridge Her Garden's token from Xiao Hua and took over everything in the Her Garden. The two of them sat opposite Xiao Hua and cultivated. Another month passed, and all of a sudden, the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden's array formation trembled. Xiang Yang opened the array formation, and it was none other than the Thunder Quake Palace's disciples who came to collect the spiritual herbs. Seeing Xiang Yang here, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. At this time, Xiao Hua laughed loudly. Eldest senior brother. Ignore him. Little brother has a feeling here. What? You? Xiangyang looked at Xiao Hua, who flew up and was very surprised. You? You? When he released his divine sense and looked carefully, it was the sign of building his foundation. He couldn't help but be overjoyed, clapping his hands and saying, "It's extremely difficult for others to build their foundation. I didn't expect junior brother to succeed so easily. This kind of fortune. TSK. No one can compare." As he spoke, he no longer paid attention to the Thunderquake Palace's disciple and the Eastern Ridges Array formation. With a wave of his hand, he brought Xiao Hua and flew towards the west. Yin Qinglian also flew behind them. The Thunderquake Palace's disciple had an envious look on his face. He stopped in midair for a moment, thought for a while, and also flew towards the west. Xiangyang knew that the Thunderquake Palace's disciple followed him, but he didn't stop him. Firstly, being able to see others build their foundation was beneficial to his own comprehension. In Xiangyang's mind, Xiao Hua's successful foundation building was greatly related to his participation in the Feather Immortal Assembly. Since he obtained it, he should teach it to others. Xiangyang had no reason to drive him away. Secondly, someone in the Myriad Thunder Valley had built their foundation, and it was a matter of glory. If it was in the Hunter Grass sect, Shanghuaming, or other small sects, they should congratulate the whole sect and even invite other friendly sects to watch the ceremony. Although the Imperial Thunder sect wouldn't be so grand, Xiao Hua would be able to move out of Jin Lei Palace legitimately in the future. He could even hand over the Eastern Ridge Her Gardens task to the Thunderquake Palace and move to another cave in the Myriad Thunder Valley. Therefore, Xiangyang also had the intention to show off. After flying towards the west for nearly 2 hours, Xiao Hua arrived at a place with tall mountains, dense grass, and abundant water. With a sweep of his divine sense, he knew that the spiritual energy here was abnormally dense. It was the best place to build one's foundation. He couldn't help but thank his master again. "Let's do it here." Xiangyang pointed at a place at the foot of a mountain where the sun was rising. There was lush mountain grass everywhere. At a glance, the scenery of several dozen li could be seen. "Yes, I'll do as eldest senior brother says." After Xiao Hua answered, he sat down cross-legged and silently operated his cultivation technique. He didn't say anything else. That Thunderclap Palace disciple didn't dare to get too close. He found a dry place and also sat down. His eyes, however, were fixed on Xiao Hua. He didn't even blink as he wanted to memorize the signs of foundation establishment in his heart. Although Xiao Hua already felt the signs of building his foundation, there were still no signs from Xiao Hua's body until noon of the third day. Just when that thunderous Thunder Palace disciple felt tired and wanted to rest for a moment, all of a sudden, the heaven and earth spirit energy within a radius of several tens of kilometers suddenly became chaotic. An indescribable pressure was emitted from Xiao Hua's body, and that pressure instantly enveloped the entire area of several tens of kilometers. It wasn't just the Thunderquake Palace's disciple. Even the protectors, Xiangyang and Yin Qinglian, were greatly shocked. This place, the pressure was really too strong. The range was also too large. They felt that it was several times stronger than when they were building their foundation. And as the pressure on Xiao Hua's body continued to increase, an extremely large suction force was emitted from Xiao Hua's body. The chaotic spiritual energy in the surrounding several dozen li areas swarmed towards Xiao Hua. One by one, thumb-sized sparkling beads suddenly appeared in the entire space. They were precisely the spiritual energy that had condensed into dots. This, Xiangyang and Yin Qinglian were shocked again. Other people's foundation establishment stage cultivators had visible dots of heaven and earth spirit chi, but their junior brothers was actually the size of a thumb. This was really too unbelievable. At this moment, Xiangyang somewhat regretted letting the Thunderquake Palace's disciple follow. Xiao Hua still hadn't taken a foundation building pill, yet he already had such a powerful foundation building. The depth of his magic power could be seen clearly. Xiangyang had always understood the true meaning of concealing one's strength and biding one's time. This kind of profound magic power should be concealed. There was no need for others to know. Moreover, Xiaohua was still very young. Among the many foundation-building cultivators, he could still be considered young. Now that he had just built his foundation, he was already showing off his abilities. This would be detrimental to his future cultivation. Not to mention that the Thunderquake Palace's disciple was so shocked that he couldn't even close his mouth. Xiaohua's face was expressionless. At this moment, he sensed that the torrential true energy in his meridians was violently boiling. It was already beginning to show signs of liquefaction. But right at this moment, the torrential true energy suddenly collided with a wall in his meridians. Xiaohua was greatly shocked. Wasn't this the sign of a breakthrough in each of the 12 layers of qi refining? Moreover, wasn't that wall where the meridians of the foundation building technique he saw earlier were located? However, that vigorous true energy only collided once and then stopped. The entire true energy once again flowed along the meridians. It was no different from usual, except that the true energy's boiling was even more intense, unceasingly colliding with the walls of the meridians. At this moment, eldest senior brother Xiang Yang's unconcealed excitement reached Xiaohua's ears. Little junior brother, you can take a foundation building pill now. Foundation building pill. Xiaohua's heart was moved. He knew that as long as he used the foundation building pill, his true energy would begin to liquefy. The boiling true energy would gradually turn into liquid true essence. If he used the accumulating spirit talisman, the process of transforming true energy into true essence would be slowed down greatly. Then, he would be able to cultivate again, and the liquefied true energy would be freed up in his meridians to refine true energy again. However, in this way, he would lose the opportunity to attack the wall of the 12th layer of qi refining. Thinking about the vast space in another set of meridians that might produce true energy similar to his current meridians, and thinking about it again, using the space formed by true essence to regenerate true energy, this was absolutely incomparable. Xiaohua's heart was incomparably tangled. He was facing the most serious choice in his life. No, in his long journey to become a god. If he chose the normal foundation building technique and used the accumulating spirit talisman normally, he would have a stronger magical power than his peers. But what if he opened up another meridian? Would he have an even stronger magical power? Stronger and more powerful magic power was inevitable. But this was a path that no one had taken before. The future was also unknown. The slightest bit of carelessness could cause the foundation establishment to vanish like a bubble. All of his previous hardships and efforts would be for naught. Shui and Fairy Hongxia's feelings were like the setting sun. What should I do? What should I do? Xiaohua's forehead was somewhat sweaty. Little junior brother, you can't wait any longer. You have to hurry and take the foundation building pill. Yin Xinglian was also anxious. She saw that thumb-sized spiritual pearls had condensed within a radius of 10 li. They were all quietly floating in the air, unable to be absorbed by Xiaohua. As time passed, there would definitely be a change. Fairy Hongxia. Thinking about the moment Fairy Hongxia entered foundation building, and thinking about how the Washing Flower sect had treated him that day, Xiaohua's heart steeled for no reason. There's always been no path in this world. But as long as there are many people walking on it, there will naturally be a path. If this young master doesn't walk on it, who would know that this is a path? Today, this young master will walk the path that no one has walked before. I will let the heavens know my heart. Let the earth know my intentions. Even if this path is impassable, this young master will cut through all the thistles and thorns to carve out a path. Chapter 1661. With that thought, a faint smile appeared on Xiaohua's face. With a wave of his hand, he took out a dozen soul-gathering pills from his space and put them in his mouth. When Xiang Yang saw Xiaohua finally take out the pills, the stone in his heart finally fell to the ground, and a gratified smile appeared on his face. However, Yin Qinglian was careful. With a glance, she saw Xiao Hua take out a dozen pills, and her heart jumped. How could an aura-refining cultivator take a dozen foundation-building pills all at once when building their foundation? Even if their cultivation level wasn't high enough, they still had to take them one by one. However, when she saw Xiao Hua take out soul-gathering pills, the expression on her face changed greatly. Xiao Hua took a dozen soul-gathering pills. The true energy produced by the soul-gathering pills filled Xiao Hua's meridians to the brim. At this time, the dragon transformation art also showed its effect. It wanted to slightly expand his meridians, but Xiao Hua tried his best to stop his meridians from expanding. On one hand, he mobilized his true energy to fiercely hit the barrier. Once, twice, he tried a dozen times in a row, but he still couldn't break it. Xiang Yang, who was standing not far from Xiao Hua, was somewhat anxious. He whispered, "Junior brother, if it doesn't work, you can take another foundation-building pill." Yes, other people take a foundation-building pill to have the phenomenon of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth condensing. You didn't take a foundation-building pill, but now you took a foundation-building pill, but there was no change. How could Xiang Yang not be anxious? Yin Qinglian, who was at the side, stretched out her hand, wanting to pull Xiang Yang's sleeve. However, her hand stopped halfway, and she bit her lower lip. She really didn't know what Xiao Hua was doing. She also didn't know how to explain it to Xiang Yang. However, at this moment, the foundation-building pressure coming from Xiao Hua's body suddenly disappeared, as if it had never appeared. The spiritual energy condensing pearls within a radius of a dozen li also gradually melted like snow under the sun, disappearing without a trace. Xiang Yang's face once again showed incomparable astonishment. He really didn't expect that such a powerful foundation building, such a large area of condensing pearls, would actually fail so easily. Yes, failure. This was the thought that never crossed his mind when he saw Xiao Hua start building his foundation. In an instant, incomparable disappointment grew in his heart. Unexpectedly, it was even more dispirited than his failure to build his foundation. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. This was indeed the case. Yin Qinglian was also greatly shocked in her heart, but when she looked at Xiao Hua again, her face, which still had a slight smile just now, had now returned to normal, without any joy or sorrow, as if nothing had happened just now. "Xiao!" Just as Xiang Yang was about to ask, Yin Qinglian pulled him back and shook her head slightly. Xiang Yang sighed, not knowing what to say. He could only shake his head and cast a sideways glance at the shocking Thunder Palace disciples in the distance. Their faces were also filled with confusion, but there was a hint of schadenfreude in their eyes. He thought to himself, "Sigh, my 10,000 Thunder Valley has become a laughing stock again." At this time, Xiao Hua didn't have too many thoughts in his heart. Since he had already made his choice, he could only move forward. However, when true qi rushed into the new meridians, it was somewhat difficult for Xiao Hua. After all, what he obtained was the cultivation method of a foundation building stage cultivation technique. Moreover, he didn't start from the early stage of the foundation building stage. According to the position of the meridians, it should be the circulation method of the late stage of the foundation building stage. Moreover, he even started from half of the late stage meridians. Fortunately, the cultivation method of this prairie fire cultivation technique was actually effective. Following Xiao Hua's circulation according to the cultivation method, new spiritual energy of heaven and earth had already entered his body. At the same time, it also started to temper the new meridians. However, when Xiao Hua was halfway through the cultivation method, an abnormality occurred again. This prairie fire cultivation technique's late-stage cultivation method could only be used by half, and the other half couldn't be used at all. What's going on? Xiao Hua thought to himself. Could it be because what's being tempered is true qi and not true essence? If that's the case, can the first, middle, and last 3 layers of this prairie fire cultivation technique correspond to the 6th layer of the aura refining stage? then wouldn't I have reached the 18th layer of the aura refining stage? As soon as the thought of reaching the 18th layer of the aura refining stage appeared in Xiao Hua's mind, an incomparable confidence was born in his heart. It was as if this aura refining stage should be at the 18th layer. Soon after, Xiao Hua once again circulated his cultivation method. After stabilizing his realm, he opened his eyes. What entered his eyes was Xiang Yang's pair of indescribable eyes. However, seeing Xiao Hua open his eyes, Xiang Yang's gaze immediately changed into one of comfort. He said with a smile, "Little junior brother, don't be anxious. This is only your first time building your foundation. Failure is inevitable. This failure was already clearly explained to Master when he accepted you as his disciple that day. Presumably, you've also made sufficient preparations. You see, didn't elder brother also use 50 years to build my foundation? If you cultivate for a few more years, you'll definitely be able to build your foundation a second time." Xiao Hua's face didn't carry any dejection. Admittedly, he couldn't tell eldest senior brother about the matter of the 13th layer of the aura refining stage. However, seeing eldest senior brother's sincere concern, Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Many thanks for eldest senior brother's concern. Little junior brother is originally a loose cultivator, and his foundation is really bad. Not being able to build my foundation is precisely within little junior brother's expectations. On the contrary, eldest senior brother was disappointed by my great momentum just now. Alas, elder brother, can't say that I'm disappointed. I just didn't want little junior brother to walk on elder brother's path again. However, no matter how much I calculated, little junior brother still followed elder brother." Xiang Yang couldn't help but sigh. Elder brother only has regret, but what about Master? Alas, of course, there's still Master. Xiao Hua had a bitter smile on his face as he recalled the helplessness he felt when he wholeheartedly wanted to build his foundation. "Senior brother Xiao," a distant thunderclap palace disciple shouted, "I've already been waiting here for many days. Since senior brother Xiao hasn't been able to build his foundation, please hand over the spiritual plants to I as soon as possible so that I can return to the palace and report back." Good. Xiao Huan naturally didn't feel anything in his heart, so he said good 3 times in a row. He turned his head and asked, "Eldest senior brother, should little junior brother return to Myriad Thunder Valley to see Master? What do you think?" Xiang Yang asked back. "All right, eldest senior brother, please wait a moment. This place is also on the way back to Myriad Thunder Valley. After little junior brother delivers the spiritual plants, little junior brother will return to Myriad Thunder Valley with eldest senior brother and senior sister-in-law." As he spoke, he unfolded his figure, flew in front of the Thunderclap Palace disciple, and said, "Let's go." At this time, the Thunderclap Palace disciple's deference was gone. He slightly nodded his head, only showing the only courtesy he had, and followed Xiao Hua as he flew towards Eastern Ridge. After all, the number of times Xiao Hua could build his foundation was limited. If Xiao Hua couldn't build his foundation this time, the next chance would be even less. Moreover, whether there would be a next time was still uncertain. If nothing unexpected happened, Xiao Hua would only be an aura-refining cultivator in this lifetime. This Thunderclap Palace disciple wouldn't be respectful to him. As he watched Xiao Hua fly away, Xiang Yang heavily sighed. How is this possible? Even without taking a foundation-building pill, there are signs of building his foundation. How can he still fail after taking a foundation-building pill? Yin Qinglian's eyes turned, and she said in a low voice, "Husband, are you sure little junior brother took a foundation-building pill?" How? Helplessness was greatly alarmed. He had never thought that Xiao Hua would be so careless when building his foundation. Inside the Immortal's cave, Helplessness's face was gloomy, even thicker than the red clouds of a winter night. With a bang, Helplessness's hand slapped the stone chair, and he scolded, "Xiang Yang, what the hell are you doing? I originally wanted you to take Xiao Hua to that place, to build his foundation to avoid people's eyes and ears, but you actually let a Thunderclap Palace disciple follow him. You let an aura-refining brat watch our Myriad Thunder Valley's bustle. How did you become the eldest senior brother?" Master. Xiang Yang wanted to argue, but after calling him master, he didn't know what to say. He couldn't just drive him away, right? Moreover, looking at Xiao Hua's appearance, he was actually able to sense his own foundation. He definitely had 100% certainty. Even with that kind of momentum of building his foundation, even disciples who hadn't built their foundation wouldn't suspect that Xiao Hua had failed to build his foundation. However, as it happened, Xiao Hua had failed. As for Xiao Hua taking a soul-gathering pill and not a foundation-building pill, although Yin Qinglian had told Xiang Yang simply didn't believe her. He would be so bored as to make things difficult for him, not building his foundation. Moreover, why would he take a soul-gathering pill at this time? The true qi in his entire meridians was already saturated. If he wanted to increase it, he had to liquefy his true qi into true essence. That could only be done by taking a foundation-building pill. It was impossible for Xiao Hua to take a soul-gathering pill. Of course, while Xiang Yang firmly believed, he also warned Yin Qinglian that this kind of matter absolutely couldn't be revealed to Master Wu Hai. He knew that Wu Hai had a lot of expectations for Xiao Hua's foundation building. Master, it's all this disciple's fault. It has nothing to do with eldest senior brother. Xiao Hua's complexion was calm as he bowed and said, Wu Hai glanced at Xiao Hua. The anger he had been holding back for a long time finally came out. Xiao Hua, you little bastard, what should I say about you? You clearly know that you're a loose cultivator. You once practiced 2 kinds of cultivation methods during the aura refining stage. Your true qi is mottled and impure, so you have to put more effort into your cultivation. Don't put your thoughts on the unorthodox path. What sword pill, what divine accumulation talisman, what magic treasure, those things aren't the right path. Only by properly practicing cultivation methods and smoothly building your foundation can you be considered a true success. Take a look at yourself. At that time, the signs of foundation building were abundant, and you were so arrogant, but what was the use of that? Didn't you still fail? You have to know, enough is enough. Going too far is as bad as falling short. That's what I'm talking about. You blindly pursue profound magic power. That's only neglecting the essentials and pursuing the trifles. What do you want me to say about you? Bang, another sound rang out, and he slapped the stone chair. What did I teach you that day? Do you still think I'm your master? Husband. At the side, Zhuo Minghui laughed apologetically. This is only Xiao Hua's first time building his foundation. It's not like he won't have another chance in the future. Aren't you just adding to his burden by saying so much? How will he cultivate in the future? How will he cultivate? He has a senior brother at his side who used 50 years to build his foundation. How will he know how to cultivate? Wu Hai sneered helplessly. Soon after, he waved his large sleeve and said, Go, don't hang around in front of me. Ask your eldest senior brother what to do in the future. Hurry up and cultivate. In a few days, the news of my myriad Thunder Valley's second disciple failing to build his foundation will spread throughout the entire Thunderclap Palace. Sigh, should I go accept another disciple? Wu Hai muttered helplessly in a low voice. Chapter 1662. Xiao Hua, Xiang Yang, and the others got up, bowed, and left with their master. When they arrived at Xiang Yang's immortal's cave, Xiang Yang thought for a moment, then said with a smile, Junior brother, don't worry too much. Master has too many expectations for you. What he said just now, eldest senior brother, how could I not know what kind of person Master is? I failed to build my foundation. I've let down Master's cultivation, so it's reasonable for Master to scold me a few times. Xiao Hua said with a smile, It's best that junior brother thinks this way. Xiang Yang was very gratified and said again, As for how to cultivate in the future, I think junior brother should meditate and comprehend more in the next period of time. Comprehend the feeling of building your foundation. Reflect on why you can't build your foundation and where the problem lies. Then I'll tell junior brother how to cultivate. Yes, junior brother understands. Xiao Hua cupped his hands. Junior brother will go back now and come find eldest senior brother when I have some comprehension. Okay, you can go now. Xiang Yang and Yin Qinglian sent Xiao Hua to the entrance of the Immortal's Cave. Yin Qinglian asked again, Junior brother, how's the clear flower pill's medicinal efficacy in your meridians? Master's restriction is still there, so there's no problem, Xiao Hua said with a smile. And that's good. If there's anything abnormal, quickly come to Myriad Thunder Valley. Junior brother will remember. Xiao Hua saluted and said goodbye, then returned to the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden. Sitting cross-legged in the Immortal's Cave, Xiao Hua frowned and pondered. What Xiang Yang said didn't match his situation, so there was nothing he could use as a reference. However, if he wanted to cultivate the 13th layer of the aura refining realm, what should he do? What medicinal pill should he take? Could it be that he had to take Foundation Establishment medicinal pills? Of course, Xiao Hua also had Foundation Establishment medicinal pills in his space, but he didn't dare to take them rashly. He could only take them under the watch of Xiang Yang and other Foundation Establishment cultivators. This way, there must be a reason. What reason do I need? With that thought in mind, Xiao Hua took out his bag of holding. He wanted to take out some medicinal pills, but when he scanned it with his divine will, he smiled. The bag of holding's array formation had already been destroyed, and the medicinal pills inside had long since been transferred to another bag of holding. After thinking about it for a while, he had forgotten about it. This. Just as Xiao Hua withdrew his divine sense, he suddenly sensed some spirit energy fluctuations behind the collapsed array formation. These fluctuations were completely different from the spatial collapse Xiao Hua had seen before. What's going on? Xiao Hua was stunned. He picked up the storage pouch and carefully looked at it. This was precisely the storage pouch that he had coveted for other people's high-level storage pouch and didn't return it to buy his own. Ouch. I understand now. Xiao Hua suddenly came to a realization. That golden core expert who tried to kill martial ancestor Zhen Qing probably came for this storage pouch, right? When he thought of this, all his doubts were easily solved. Only if there was something in the storage pouch that he didn't know about would it be worth it for Aura's core stage cultivators to take action. However, when Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over it, because the spatial array inside the storage pouch still hadn't collapsed, there were only fluctuations of spiritual energy inside, yet he couldn't see what was inside. Forget it. I'll think about it later. Xiao Hua carefully hid the storage pouch close to his body, then took out another medicinal pill from the other storage pouch. Naturally, Xiao Hua racked his brains for half a night, but he still couldn't think of a reason to take the medicinal pill. Even if it was the clear flower pill in his meridians, Yin Qinglian had already warned him before, so it wouldn't be good to use it as an excuse. Damn it, I've been caught in a trap of my own making. Xiao Hua slapped his forehead and bitterly smiled. I can't cultivate at a tortoise's pace like the first layer of qi refining. Fire essence flame crystal. I'm worried about personal gains and losses. Didn't I already think of this when I was in Zhen Lei Palace's book collection pavilion? Xiao Hua suddenly revealed a trace of a smile on his face. Back then, when Xiao Hua was besieged by 4 Foundation Establishment stage cultivators from Shanghua sect, Qiqiao sect, and Xuanyin school, he took the risk and used the Fire Essence Flame Crystal to raise his cultivation from the 4th layer of Qi refining to the 10th layer of Qi refining. The danger was obvious. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiao Hua had no other choice, he definitely wouldn't have taken such a risk. Now, although he wanted to use the Fire Essence Flame Crystal to raise his cultivation, he definitely needed a foolproof plan before he was willing to use it. But how could Xiao Hua have a foolproof plan? After thinking about it, if he didn't want his master or senior brother to come and protect him, he could only take the risk himself. Xiao Hua carefully thought about his experience of using the Fire Essence Flame Crystal last time and felt a sense of powerlessness. After all, the flames that the Fire Essence Flame Crystal had turned into had mostly been absorbed by his body, meridians, and bones. Only a small portion had been refined by him using the cultivation method of the Heavenly Laws embodiment technique. Xiao Hua could only control this small portion of fire attribute spiritual energy. The majority of it was up to fate. Without the risk of being caught, Xiao Hua naturally wasn't willing to take such a risk. He couldn't help but hesitate for a few more days. On this day, a fire essence flame crystal the size of a mung bean floated in front of Xiao Hua. Its scorching aura submerged the entire cave. Its scarlet color was abnormally deep. Upon closer inspection, it was actually somewhat black. It actually absorbed all the light and couldn't reflect it. AI, should I use it or not? If I don't use it properly, my body will break and I will die. Xiao Hua frowned. At this moment, the spell formation of the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden shook. Obviously, someone came from outside. Huh? Could it be Senior Brother? Xiao Hua's brows slightly relaxed. He put away the fire essence flame crystal and left the spell formation. Outside the spell formation, it was obviously not Xiangyang, but Xue Xue and Sun Shu. Seeing Xiao Hua fly out of the spell formation, Xue Xue couldn't help but fly over and extend her hand. With a smile on her face, she said, Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's heart warmed. He reached out and held her warm hands. He glanced at Sun Shu, who had already turned his head to the side, and said in a low voice, Xue Xue, why are you here? I heard that you failed to build your foundation, so I specially came to see you. Xiao Hua frowned and said in a low voice, What? Even you know that I failed to build my foundation? Xue Xue held his hand and said with a smile, Look at you. You don't need to be nervous. I'm just worried about you. I've always been inquiring about you. Xiao Hua looked deeply at Xue Xue and said with a smile, Of course I know about your feelings. However, you're in Sun Lei Palace. I'm just a little aura refining disciple of Zun Lei Palace. Even if you wanted to inquire about me, you wouldn't be able to do so, right? Xue Xue clenched her teeth. She lowered her head and pondered for a moment. Then, she raised her head and said, Let's go over there and talk, okay? Up to you. Senior sister's son, I'll have to trouble you to wait for a moment. I'll go with Xiao Hua. I'll be right back. When Sun Shu heard this, she didn't turn her head and said loudly, Go quickly and come back quickly. Our time is limited. Don't make any mistakes. Let's go. With a smile on her face, Xue Xue pulled Xiao Hua into the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden. After finding a place filled with gorgeous mountain flowers, Xue Xue hugged Xiao Hua and buried her face in his chest. She said in a low voice, Xiao Hua, I've missed you so much. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for it. Chapter 1663. Feeling Xue Xue's hands wrapped around his arms, and also feeling Xue Xue's burning hot tender body on his body, Xiao Hua's heroic heart had long since turned soft. Similarly, he used his hands to wrap around Xue Xue's waist and stuck his face to Xue Xue's forehead. In an in, Xue Xue coquettishly pouted and raised her head after another moment of tenderness. Xue Xue's face was already red. She said in a low voice, Xiao, you can be considered a famous figure among the Imperial Thunder Sect's refinement disciples. Ever since the Feather Immortal Assembly, I've always heard of your name. Who knows how many people envy your cultivation? I'm afraid it's not that simple, right? Xiao Hua sneered. Hee. Of course, the ones who envy the most are naturally you and Hong Xia Fairy. Xue Xue laughed, and her tone was filled with jealousy. I don't care what they think. What I'm worried about is little Xue Xue's thoughts. Xiao Hua kissed Xue Xue's forehead and said in a low voice, How am I young? Xue Xue coquettishly pouted. You don't seem to be older than me, right? Xiao Hua felt Xue Xue's mood and unconsciously became restless. Xue Xue sensed it and hurriedly pushed him a little. She said in a low voice, It's precisely because you're in the limelight that many pairs of eyes are staring at Myriad Thunder Valley. The entire Imperial Thunder Sect knows that you failed to build your foundation a few days ago. I'm worried about you, so I specially came to look for you. Hee. Could it be that you think I can't build my foundation? Xiao Hua's eyes contained a smile. Xue Xue pulled her hand out from Xiao Hua's back and reached out to support Xiao Hua's neck. Her eyes were somewhat blurred as she said in a low voice, Xiao Hua still has a chance to build his foundation. Even if Xiao Hua can't build his foundation, I will still accompany you." As she spoke, she used her arm to pull Xiao Hua's head down. Her cherry-red lips greeted him, and she answered with fiery passion. After a while, Xue said in a low voice, "I came out with senior sister Sun to do something, so I can't stay here for long. Xiao Hua, you can cultivate in peace. I'll help you look at Master and see if there's any remedy. Even if it doesn't work, I can't build my foundation in 50 years. I don't believe that Xiao can't build his foundation." Xiao Hua nodded and said, "Many thanks for little Xue's kind intentions. I will definitely work hard." Xue smiled. "I know. I came here today to tell you that no matter if you build your foundation or not, no matter what my cultivation level is in the future, my heart will follow you." Xiao Hua's heart heated up, and he was very moved. Xue, sure, you don't have to say anything, darling Xiao." Xue's voice was as gentle as water. Right at this moment, a message talisman was sent over. It was Sun Shu urging him. "I'm leaving, Xiao Hua." Xue stood on her tiptoes and kissed Xiao Hua's cheek. Xiao Hua had already made a decision in his heart and said with a smile. After sending Xue out of the Eastern Ridge Formation, Sun Shu was already waiting. He looked deeply at Xiao Hua, as if he wanted to say something, but hesitated. He only said to Xue, "Junior sister Xue, let's hurry and leave. I'll follow senior sister Sun's instructions." Xue's face was slightly bashful as she said to Xiao Hua, "Then, you cultivate carefully. I'm leaving." Xiao Hua looked at the two and didn't ask what Sun Shu wanted to say. He raised his hand and bid farewell to the two. When Xue's reluctant gaze disappeared from Xiao Hua's field of vision, Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and flew back to the Eastern Ridge. After closing the formation, he sat cross-legged on the foothills of a tall mountain in the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden and quietly adjusted his breathing. He only waited for the next morning. When the first ray of sunlight shone on Xiao Hua's body, Xiao Hua waved his hand, and among bean-sized fire essence flame crystal appeared in his hand. Then, without hesitation, he patted it on his arm. Just like last time, with a boom, his entire arm was ignited by the fire essence flame crystal. Immediately after, Xiao Hua's entire body's 132 million points flashed just as Xiao Hua had imagined. Like 132 million small mouths, they swallowed the flames that were burning near them. A heart-wrenching pain spread throughout Xiao Hua's entire body. When he looked at the muscles beside the 132 million points, he could faintly see threads of fire flickering. These fire threads burned Xiao Hua's muscles at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. However, at the same time that the muscles were burned, new muscles regenerated at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. The new muscles were even thicker than the previous ones and contained even more things that weren't there before. Everything was the same as last time when he used the fire essence flame crystal. Roar! Xiao Hua was in so much pain that he couldn't bear it. He roared loudly and maintained a trace of clarity in his heart. He used the incomplete, vigorous Vajradharma body technique that Hanju gave him. Speaking of which, it was strange. Just as he started to use the technique, the 13,200 little points began to tremble slightly and absorbed even more flames. Following the circulation of the technique, a shadow emerged from one of the little points. Then a second, a third. Many more shadows slowly emerged. Only when the shadows gradually stopped appearing did the heart-wrenching pain gradually disappear. Immediately after, just like last time, a huge suction force came from the bones and sucked the flames into the bones. The originally grayish-white bones suddenly turned into the shape of white jade. At this moment, 40% of the white jade bones were densely entwined with crimson blood threads. After the bones were refined by the flames, the crimson blood threads gradually spread, and gradually 60% of the bones were entwined by the crimson blood threads. It's time for the dragon transformation art. Xiao Hua silently chanted in his heart and used the prairie fire cultivation technique. Sure enough, once the flames touched his meridians absorbed the flames like a fire dragon. The dragon transformation art madly rotated and sucked the majority of the flames into his meridians. In an instant, Xiao Hua's meridians twitched and faintly flashed with red light. Just like last time, the dragon transformation art was pushed forward at a speed several times faster than usual. Xiao Hua looked at the remaining flames in his meridians and saw that there was only 10% of the flames left. Alas, could it be that, in a while, more flames will come out from my meridians? Xiao Hua sighed slightly, but at this moment, he didn't have time to think too much. He activated the prairie fire cultivation technique in his meridians and began to refine the flames. Fortunately, a foundation establishment cultivation technique was a foundation establishment cultivation technique. It was far from being comparable to a qi refinement cultivation technique. The flames transformed from the fire essence flame crystal didn't suddenly explode like the heavenly laws embodiment technique last time, nor did it transform into a different kind of flames. Instead, following the activation of the cultivation technique, it gradually flowed within his meridians and was gradually refined by the cultivation technique, becoming true qi within Xiao Hua's meridians. Alas, until now, when he saw that everything had returned to normal, Xiao Hua finally let out a sigh of relief from his heart. At this moment, the bones that were sparkling and translucent like jade earlier were now almost 60% scarlet red in color. However, the flames were still incessantly burning the bones. The illusory figures of the 13,200 million small dots also left the position of the small dots, faintly showing signs of floating out of Xiao Hua's body. Chapter 1664. Xiao Hua's usage of the fire essence flame crystal this time was different from the last time. Although he had used the prairie fire cultivation technique to absorb the remaining flames into his meridians to refine them, the flames on his bones and the flames burning his body did not immediately disappear. Instead, they were slowly being refined. As early as when Xiao Hua had fused the fire essence flame crystal into his arm and ignited his entire body, there was a fist-sized chunk of lava in the depths of the Eastern Ridge medicinal garden. That fist was surrounded by cold and rocks, and the inside of the fist was divided into several layers. The outermost layer was magma that was like water, and the innermost layer was solidified and turned into a crystal. The innermost layer was emptiness, just like the emptiness of air. However, in this emptiness, there was a trace of a pitch-black collapse. It was the kind of collapse that was so hot that it was about to burn the space. As the flames around Xiao Hua's body lingered, the pitch-black collapse in the innermost layer of the crystal actually moved towards Xiao Hua. Little by little, Xiao Hua sat on top of the mountain like this. Flames lingered around his body, calcining his bones and producing virtual points. This continued for 99 days. When the 100th day was up, the rising sun in the east shone its first rays on Xiao Hua's body. The strange flames suddenly retracted and were absorbed into Xiao Hua's body. The scarlet color on the bones had already covered 60% of them. However, this scarlet color was still somewhat mottled and impure. Immediately after, the bones flashed with brilliance and returned to their original grayish-white color. There were no longer any abnormalities. Similarly, the 13,200 virtual points that were produced also separated from the black dots at this time. They piled up together and formed the framework of another human figure. However, this human figure was much taller and sturdier than Xiao Hua. It was actually similar to a King Kong. Following the disappearance of the flames outside Xiao Hua's body, the pitch-black collapse that had risen from the ground for 99 days also stopped. Immediately after, at the place where it stopped, the rocks around an inch around it were all burned into gas. The rocks an inch away from it were also burned into lava. Facing the rising sun, Xiao Hua opened his eyes, and there was a confident smile on his face. But after a long time, a bitter smile appeared on his face, and he wiped his head with his hand and said to himself, "Alas, my hair is gone again." Soon after, Xiao Hua didn't get up. He slightly circulated the true energy in his body and smiled as he muttered to himself. As expected of the fire marrow and flame crystal, as expected of a foundation establishment cultivation method. I have only cultivated for 100 days, and this realm has already reached the middle stage of the 13th layer of the aura, refining realm. Moreover, the flame of my meridians is more than half of what it was before. If nothing unexpected happens, in another 100 days or so, I'll be able to set foot into the so-called 14th layer of the aura refining realm. I wonder, what's the difference between I's 14th layer of Qi refining and foundation establishment? Soon after, Xiao Hua floated up from the ground. He lowered his head and looked at the ground that had long been burned by the flames of the fire essence flame crystal. He used the hibernating thunder escape and returned to the cave. On one hand, he continued to practice the prairie fire mental cultivation method to refine the flames and increase his cultivation base. On the other hand, he divided his attention to practice the exquisite shell leaf heart sutra of the Buddhist sect and pondered over the Buddhist Sarira in his Naiwan palace. Normally, when a cultivator practices qi refining, they must concentrate on one thing and should avoid being distracted the most. However, Xiao Hua had many different cultivation methods. If he practiced them separately, it would inevitably affect his own progress. Therefore, when Xiao Hua used the blood shadow art to practice the dragonization ability, he was already moved. He gradually tried to use the secret of this cultivation method in other aspects. In particular, the Buddhist sect's Buddha Sarira cultivation method was completely different from the Taoist sect's qi refining method. One refined true qi in the meridians, while the other constructed Sarira outside the Naiwan palace. Using some of the secrets of the blood shadow art, they complemented each other and didn't interfere with each other. This young master is a genius. Xiao Hua's little tail unconsciously stuck up. Just like that, several days passed peacefully. On this day, Xiao Hua's heart was moved. He reached into his body and took out the storage pouch. When he scanned it with his divine sense, he was stunned. He saw that the spatial formation had already collapsed. However, after it collapsed, there was still an extremely large spatial formation under this formation. This storage pouch actually had 2 layers of space. He saw that this hidden space was empty. There was only an arrow-like object that was several times larger than a command token. It emitted a blue light and floated in the storage pouch. What is this thing? It can actually make a gold core stage cultivator take action? Xiao Hua naturally knew that this thing was the real thing inside the storage pouch. He thought it was a bit strange. Soon after, he took out the arrow-like command token. He saw that the command token seemed to be made of gold but not gold. There were very simple runes engraved on it. These runes were different from what Xiao Hua usually saw. It seemed very mysterious. Xiao Hua didn't recognize a single one of these words, but each of these words seemed to emit a distant aura. At first glance, they actually resembled the green seal script, and even the words on the tortoise shell were somewhat similar. Damn, could it be that this is an ancient object? Xiao Hua was a bit flabbergasted. What is this thing used for? In his divine sense, the spiritual energy fluctuations on the command token weren't particularly strong. It was just a bit obscure. Xiao Hua held the command token in his hand and resisted the urge to pour his magic power into it. With a wave of his hand, he placed the command token into the storage pouch. Damn, even if a gold core stage cultivator comes again, this command token is still this young master's. Xiao Hua's mouth hung a trace of a sneer. Since the meat was already in his mouth, want to spit it out, humph, humph, that would be extremely difficult. But immediately after, Xiao Hua thought, what exactly is this thing? I can't go ask people. I can't always keep it in my storage pouch. Moreover, I encountered many things in the past, but I don't know what they are. This is really annoying, although these things can only be learned when I travel, but my cultivation is more important right now. How can I go out so easily? Forget it. Doesn't this young master have the sect master's command token? Zhen Xie and Qian Mingwei were able to find the Buddhist ruins in the library pavilion. Should this young master also go and take a look? It seems that the Imperial Thunder Sect's library pavilion doesn't have many cultivation methods, but there are many other anecdotes. Even if I can't go out and travel, I can look at the senior's letters and expand my knowledge, right? This sect head command token can't be used only once, right? Thinking about this, Xiao Hua stood up. His cultivation method was very different from others. He didn't particularly care about the surrounding spiritual energy. There was no difference between cultivating in this cave and cultivating in the library pavilion. Since that was the case, if he could take the time to read more books and expand his knowledge, why not? Xiao Hua left the Eastern Mountain Medicinal Garden and closed the spell formation. He looked around and frowned. Then, he didn't use the hibernating lightning escape technique and only used the flight technique to fly away. He leisurely flew towards the nearest lightning palace. After he flew away, an early Foundation establishment stage cultivator appeared in the distance. This person didn't wear a camouflage robe, but an ordinary Taoist robe. Xiao Hua is only SOSO. Why is 4th Senior so cautious? Chapter 1665. Motherfucker, who is this? I've already been cultivating inside the formation for nearly 100 days. Don't tell me this guy has been waiting outside the formation for 100 days? What if I don't come out today? Wouldn't he have to keep waiting? Xiao Hua didn't release his divine sense, but instead released his Buddhist sense. This Buddhist sense was the most miraculous. That Foundation establishment cultivator simply didn't detect it. Don't tell me that the lost command tablet is in this guy's hands? Xiao Hua thought. After flying for a while, he stopped again and secretly observed that Foundation establishment cultivator. Who knew that that cultivator simply didn't approach the Eastern Ridge Medicine Gardens formation. Instead, he flew away on his own. Strange, this person. Xiao Hua was somewhat baffled. Forget it. I'll just be careful in the future. Xiao Hua's eyes slightly narrowed. His figure unfolded, and he used the hibernating thunder escape to fly away. However, just as he flew up, Xiao Hua discovered that he had already cultivated the first level of the lightning escape technique to perfection. He had reached the standard to cultivate the second level of the awakening lightning escape. Light escape. Light escape. As expected, it's the world's #1 escape technique. Xiao Hua faced the sky and laughed heartily. I've only just tempered my bones to 60%. I haven't even finished cultivating the first level, and this lightning escape has already advanced to the second level. Like this, the thunderclap, 9th heaven, is definitely within reach. While laughing, Xiao Hua secretly recalled the cultivation method of the awakening lightning escape. On the road, he also began to practice the awakening lightning escape. Not to mention that Xiao Hua once again entered the various Lightning Palace's library pavilions to prepare to read extensively to make up for his lack of experience. On top of a precipitous mountain in Xuanyan School, a young cultivator with a face full of unswerving determination was kneeling in front of a gray-haired golden core cultivator, listening to the cultivator's teachings. This young cultivator was actually the 11th level Qi refinement Xiao Mao. This mountain was different from other places in Xuanyan School. The difference wasn't in the terrain, but in the climate. In the cultivation world, the weather was naturally unpredictable. Wind, rain, thunder, and lightning were numerous. However, within Xuanyan School's mountain gate, the weather was also affected by the sect's protective formation. The bright spring sun, gentle wind, and drizzle were all cultivators' favorite. Who didn't want to have a comfortable environment to leisurely cultivate in? However, on the mountain where Xiao Mao was, the wind was chilly and bone-chilling. The rain was icy cold and chilled one's heart and lungs. At this moment, Xiao Mao's entire body was drenched by the cold rain. When the cold wind blew, bits of ice were about to condense on Xiao Mao's Taoist robe. Xiao Mao's face was ashen, and his lips were purple from the cold, trembling slightly. Xiao Mao, you've already reached the 10th layer of Qi refining and are about to enter the late stage. If nothing unexpected happens, you'll be able to enter the 11th layer within a few years. The middle stage Aura's core cultivator in front of Xiao Mao was sitting cross-legged in midair. There seemed to be an invisible shield around him that blocked the drizzling rain outside. Even the gusts of wind could not blow the goatee on his chin. But your cultivation level is really quite high within my Shuanyan school. To tell the truth, if it wasn't for the sect master's orders, this old man definitely wouldn't have accepted you as a disciple, especially when you already have a master to guide you. Xiao Mao's body trembled slightly, but he still spoke in a trembling voice. This disciple understands. This disciple's talent is poor and has made master difficult. Xiao Mao's words were from the bottom of his heart. He also understood that this Aura's core cultivator before him, Yuan Jiming, was extremely resourceful and had endless means. He was also well known within Shuanyan school. However, this senior's temperament was also strange. He never liked peace and harmony, and did not like to interact with others. His residence was also dangerous, and the weather was strange. Moreover, this senior had never accepted a disciple. If it wasn't for the sect master's order, Xiao Mao might not even have been able to meet this senior, much less become his disciple. Actually, when it came to becoming a disciple, Xiao Mao didn't understand either. Ever since he used the fire essence flame crystal in the ice cave last time, he saw his seniors, who had better aptitudes and cultivation levels than him, exploding and dying one by one. His heart was filled with despair. However, the dragon transformation skill that he had been secretly cultivating really surprised him. Every time the fire spiritual energy in his body went out of control and wanted to break through his meridians, the meridians in his body were unbelievably tough. Every time the spiritual energy in his body went out of control and wanted to break through his meridians, the meridians in his body were unbelievably tough. The more it was like this, the more grateful Xiao Mao felt towards the big brother Xiao Hua that he had rashly recognized that day. This feeling came from the bottom of his heart, a kind of heartfelt admiration. In the end, when he narrowly escaped death and cultivated the skill to the 10th level, he was brought in front of the sect master, Fairy Yingjue, with the other two disciples, Pan Hao and Feng Linbua. Only then did he finally understand the importance of his survival to Shuanyan school. After all, Xiao Mao was only the most ordinary disciple of Shuanyan school. Under normal circumstances, it was absolutely impossible for him to meet Fairy Yingjue. Moreover, on that day in the Yinling Palace, other than the sect master, the other elders were also present. These were all people that Xiao Mao had only heard of, but had never seen before. This was not the most important thing. When Fairy Yingjue finished inspecting the cultivation levels of Xiao Mao and the other two, she praised them greatly and rewarded them with spiritual medicine. Moreover, she appointed each of the three disciples to be a master of the Aura's core stage to guide them in their future cultivation. Even when Xiao Mao came to this cold mountain with the sect master's token, he was still in a dream, until he knelt in the cold wind and rain, kneeling in front of Yuan Jiming. Although he suffered endless torment, his heart was boiling with passion. A master of the Aura's core stage, this was something that he had never dreamt of. What's so difficult about it? Yuan Jiming snorted coldly. That voice pierced Xiao Mao's heart and lungs. A moment ago, his heart was boiling hot, but at this moment it was ice cold. See, Xiao Mao could not help but groan and grit his teeth tightly. However, it was still very cold. That kind of trembling that came from the bottom of his heart could not be suppressed and spread to the outside of his body. Keek. Xiao Mao's teeth were chattering. Yuan Jiming sneered again, but this time the sneer was only heard by the ear. How much wind and rain have you endured? Such a simple cold already made you so uncomfortable. The sect master even said that your body is strong, and told how to train more. Disciple doesn't dare. Xiao Mao stammered. If you become my disciple, you will have to endure such hardships every day. Yuan Jiming said coldly again. Moreover, I have many tricks up my sleeves. This cold wind and rain is just a small trick. Are you willing? Disciple is willing. Xiao Mao agreed. Yuan Jiming scanned with his divine sense and naturally knew that Xiao Mao was already at the limit of his endurance. With a wave of his sleeve, a ray of light covered Xiao Mao, blocking the wind and rain outside. Thank you, master. Xiao Mao was just about to speak when Yuan Jiming whispered to him, "Shut up and listen carefully. Circulate the true qi in your body according to the previous cultivation method, and comprehend according to this old man's chant. This old man will only repeat this chant once. Whether you understand it or not, this old man will not repeat it a second time." As he spoke, his lips moved slightly, and the chant was transmitted into Xiao Mao's ears. Xiao Mao did not dare to delay, and immediately circulated the cultivation method, circulating the true qi in his meridians. At the same time, he listened carefully to the mantra, comprehending it carefully according to Yuan Jiming's explanation, and then mixed it into the cultivation method. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the mantra had been completely imparted. Xiao Mao did not dare to stop and continued to chant in his heart, circulating his true qi a few more times. When he stopped and checked, he could not help but be dumbfounded. In this short period of time, his cultivation had increased more than twice as much as usual. Master's remarkable ability is something that I would never have dreamed of. Xiao Mao could not help but exclaim. Yuan Jiming's expression was indifferent. This is only a small trick. It's nothing much. It can't wait for the grand hall. This old man has observed that your meridians are abnormally tough and wide. With this kind of talent, you should have stood out from the rest long ago. Even if you are in the 11th layer of qi refining now, it shouldn't be strange. Why is it that after you went through the elimination of the seedlings, you are still in the 10th layer of qi refining? Xiao Mao smiled apologetically. This disciple is slow-witted. Before the elimination of the seedlings, I was only in the 4th layer of qi refining. What? Qi refining. The 4th layer of qi refining? Yuan Jiming's body trembled. He had clearly just learned about the elimination of the seedlings from the sect master's order, so he was completely unaware of Xiao Mao's previous cultivation. Yes, this disciple was originally in the 4th layer of qi refining. It was only after the sect master's special training that I stepped into the 10th layer of qi refining. Xiao Mao said honestly. Yuan Jiming stared at Xiao Mao, as if he wanted to see into Xiao Mao's heart. After a while, he said in a low voice, "Xiao Mao, tell me everything in detail." Yes. Xiao Mao did not dare to refute. He recounted everything that he encountered in the ice cave and everything that could be explained in detail. The details of the cultivation method. Forgive this disciple for not being able to divulge. In the end, Xiao Mao said in a low voice. Yuan Jiming's face was calm, but his heart had long been set off by a monstrous wave. When Xiao Mao finished, he sighed and said, "Sect master is indeed unfathomable. My Xuanyin school actually has such a miraculous method. Sai, if this method could be used, wouldn't my Xuanyin school be able to dominate the Dawn Rain continent?" Forget it, Xiao Mao. This old man already understands the sect master's intentions. You can cultivate in my coal mountain. Yuan Jiming waved his hand and said, "This old man wants to see, under my guidance, when will you be able to cultivate to the golden core stage?" Golden core? Xiao Mao stared blankly. Then his face lit up with joy. He bowed and said in thanks, "Thank you, master." Yuan Jiming waved his hand, and the light barrier around Xiao Mao disappeared. The cold wind and icy rain came again, instantly drenching his already dry Taoist robe. Endure it for now. When you really can't endure it anymore, you can cultivate again. Remember, the longer you endure it, the greater your cultivation achievements will be. Yes, this disciple understands. Xiao Mao's lips were pale as he replied in a low voice. Yuan Jiming closed his eyes and ignored him, leaving Xiao Mao kneeling in the wind and rain, silently enduring it. Far to the west, in a valley filled with red flowers and green willows, water trickled down from a towering snowy mountain. After countless twists and turns, it flowed into a jade-green cold pond in the valley. If you like this work, You are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for it. Chapter 1666. This was the extreme west of Huan country. The snowy peaks stretched endlessly. Although the sunlight was also strong, here there was no longer the warmth of other places. There was only a deathly white, a cold desolation. Everything was white as far as the eye could see. There were no other colors. When a strong wind blew, the pure white snow on the snowy peaks was only blown up by the wind. The white snow had accumulated for countless years and had long been compacted. It was as hard as iron and stone. Even the strong wind couldn't move it. The cloudless sky was endless blue. It contrasted with the pure white of the snowy peaks, giving people a feeling of incomparable holiness. At the edge of the sky, blue and white met. They were clearly separated and were especially eye-catching. Above this seemingly tranquil snowy scene, two sword lights flashed through the sky. The originally brilliant sword lights seemed so small in this vast and boundless world. The two sword lights flashed past a few towering snowy peaks. With a turn, they plunged down and disappeared into the vast sea of snow. The place where the sword lights disappeared was the valley between two snowy peaks. This valley was very strange. It was similar to the other snowy peaks, all piled up with white snow. However, starting from the middle of the valley, there was an invisible formation that isolated everything inside the valley from the outside. The climate inside the valley was mild and humid. A field of red flowers and green willows covered the entire valley. On the two sides of the valley, there were streams of water that flowed slowly down the valley's stone walls. At the end of the stone walls was a deep, sparkling lake. The two sword lights flew above the deep lake. Above the deep lake, between the stone walls of the valley, there were many pavilions. There were even many palaces on the flat ground. These buildings, the rugged stone walls, and the green trees set off each other. If one didn't raise their head to look at the 10,000 years of snow on the towering snowy peaks, who could imagine that this was a place of extreme cold? The sword light receded, revealing two sword cultivators. One was a male cultivator in his 30s. He was tall, had long arms, a red face, and a pair of bright eyes. The other was a female cultivator. She was also in her 30s. She had a petite and exquisite figure. The lines on her body were clear. The heroic spirit between her eyebrows was not inferior to the male cultivator beside her. There was a green flying sword under the male cultivator's feet. When the male cultivator landed on the ground, it turned into a 4-inch long sword and flew into his hand. It was like a small snake that swam around like it was sentient. Beneath the female cultivator was a pink sword that was as thick as a thumb. As the sword light converged, it turned into a flying swan that circled around the female cultivator a few times. Then, as the female cultivator opened her cherry lips slightly, it entered the female cultivator's body. The place where the two sword cultivators landed was a palace. The palace door appeared on the stone wall, and there were dozens of steps in front of the palace door. As for the other parts of the palace, they were buried in the stone wall. The two swordsmen raised their eyes to look at the swordsmen standing guard on both sides of the palace gate. They looked at each other. There was some anxiety in their eyes, but they did not appear to be panicked. Walking up the stone steps, an armored sword guard stepped forward, raised his hand, and shouted, "Dazzling Sword Spirit Palace, please show your disciples sword token." The two sword cultivators clapped their hands and took out sword-shaped tokens that were the same as Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yue's. The sword guard took the tokens and checked them. He returned them to the two and cupped his fists. "Thank you for your hard work, seniors." The male cultivator took the sword token and nodded with a smile. "I don't dare. Thank you for your hard work as well." Then he turned around and whispered, "Junior Marshal sister, let's go quickly." "Yes, Senior Marshal brother, please go first." The female cultivator replied and quickly followed behind the male cultivator. When the two figures disappeared into the shadow of the palace gate, the sword guard sighed inwardly. The sword guard beside him also frowned slightly and said in a low voice, "Captain Song, the two seniors seem to be the teachers on duty at Shuiyu Mountain in the west." Captain Song glanced at the sword guard and smiled. "Your cultivation level is not high, but your eyes are quite sharp. You can actually see the origins of the two seniors." The sword guard did not seem to be proud of being praised. His face was filled with panic as he whispered, "If they are the teachers on duty at Shuiyu Mountain, if they are back, then wouldn't million men at Meng Mountain? Sigh, that's exactly the case." Captain Song looked around and sighed again. However, his eyes then looked at the holy mountain in the distance, and a smile appeared on his face. "We sword cultivators were born to fight. I only hope that my 3 feet of green light will protect the peace of my sword domain." "Yes, as you wish, Captain." The sword guard's eyes were filled with pride as he raised his head to look. The 2 sword cultivators hurriedly entered the palace door. The interior of the palace door was spacious, and the fist-sized moonstones on the stone walls lit up the entire palace. The sword-shaped runes engraved on the stone walls could be seen clearly. "Greetings, Martial Uncle." The 2 sword cultivators passed through a heavy pavilion, and a few young sword cultivators came up to them. When they saw the 2 of them, they immediately hid to the side and cupped their fists respectfully. The male and female sword cultivators nodded slightly and walked past them with light steps. It was only after the 2 of them left that the young sword cultivators dared to take a step forward. After walking for about the time it took to brew a cup of tea, they arrived at a spacious palace. The ground of the palace had a huge sword-shaped stone engraving, and at the end of the stone engraving was another golden palace door. The 2 sword cultivators came to the center of the hall and stopped moving forward. They clapped their hands, and the 2 sword tokens turned into 2 rays of sword light that flew into the closed door. Seeing the sword tokens disappear, the 2 bowed and said, "Shuiyu Mountain's disciples on duty, Chu Jiansheng and Yang Ming, greet the sect master." Whoosh! Before the 2 of them finished speaking, a bright green sword light shot out from the palace door and stopped in front of the 2 of them. It turned into a huge sword that was 5 feet long. Immediately after, 2 more sword lights flew out from the huge sword. They were the sword tokens that the 2 of them had just flown in. The sword tokens landed in front of the 2 of them. "Wait a moment, I still have some things to do in the palace." An old voice came from the huge sword. "Yes, disciple understands." Chu Jiansheng and Yang Ming respectfully replied. At the same time, their eyes lit up and they thought to themselves, "Sword transformation. I'm afraid Sect Master Ouyang has already refined a 3rd-grade sword transformation." After a while, the palace door in front of them flashed, and 5 sword lights shot out. These 5 sword lights had different colors and purity. One of them was similar to Sect Master Ouyang's sword light, which was fiery red. It also stopped behind the huge sword. The other 4 sword lights were slightly dimmer, and the outline of the flying sword also faded. Seeing this, Chu Jiansheng and Yang Ming didn't dare to be negligent. They bowed again and said, "Vice Sect Master, Sword Masters." Without waiting for them to raise their heads, the 2 giant swords in front of them gradually turned illusory. 2 tall old cultivators with soaring sword intent appeared. They were Sect Master Ouyang Mingxiu and Vice Sect Master Zhang Yinzong of the Xinjian sect. As for the other 4 sword beams, they too stopped, and 4 old cultivators, 1 male and 1 female, were revealed. Jinsheng, Ming'er, why didn't you guard Shuiyu Mountain? Why did you suddenly return to the Sword Palace? Could it be that something has happened to millions of Meng Mountains?" Ouyang Mingxiu asked. His voice contained the power of the golden chime, and it echoed in the hall, making people feel that it was very sharp. "Yes, Sect Master knows." "That's right," Chu Jiansheng said respectfully. "A few months ago, a few disciples of the Xinjian sect suddenly disappeared while patrolling Meng Mountains. There was no news. I led many experts to search along the usual route, but nothing unusual happened. However, after the disciples patrolled, another disciple disappeared. So, Martial Uncle Tang Hao temporarily stopped the routine patrolling, narrowed the scope of the patrolling, and sent more people to form teams." "What about the other sword sects?" After Chu Jiansheng finished speaking, Vice Sect Master Zhang Yinzong asked. His voice also had the same golden chime, and there was a sharp sword intent that was difficult to suppress. Reporting to Vice Sect Master, Yang Ming opened his mouth and said, "The Bright Sword Sect, Lunar Sun Sword Sect, and Flame Bamboo Sword Sect are guarding the vicinity of my Xian Sword Sect. According to the news they sent, similar situations have also occurred. They have taken the same measures as my Xian Sword Sect. Are there any other abnormalities?" Zhang Yinzong frowned slightly, turned to look at Ouyang Mingxiu, and asked again. "Good to let you know, Sect Masters, the area that our Xianjian sect is guarding has never been an important area. In the past few decades, the invasions of Million Mountain Meng Mountains were not initiated from this area. I have analyzed it in detail and felt that this abnormality is too sudden. I'm afraid that Million Mountain Meng Mountains is probing." Chu Jiansheng hesitated and said, "Damn it, when did the barbarians learn how to probe?" Zhang Yinzong cursed and scratched his bald head. "I'm afraid it's not that simple." Ouyang Mingxiu shook her head slightly and said, "Our Huan Country Sword Sect has been fighting with Million Mountain Meng Mountains for many years. We know each other's methods. Although Million Mountain Meng Mountains people were enlightened late, but after so many years, they should have learned a few moves from us, right?" "Haha," Zhang Yinzong laughed and said, "Unfortunately, Million Mountain Meng Mountain soul cultivators are too mysterious. If not, I would also want to cultivate, cough cough." Ouyang Mingxiu coughed and said in a low voice, "Junior brother, you are the Xinjian sect's vice sect master. How can you say such things?" "Hee. Aren't all the disciples of my Xinjian sect here?" Zhang Yinzong grinned and said, "I'm just joking, just joking. What about Flying Feather Sect and Quilted Mountain Sect?" Ouyang Mingxiu ignored Zhang Yinzong and turned to ask Chu Jiansheng. Flying Feather Sect was not a sword sect. Although they also cultivated sword origin, their natal artifact was not necessarily a flying sword. Quilted Mountain Sect was similar to Shi Country's Spirit Husbandry Sect. They used spirit beasts as companions and were considered beast cultivators. Hearing Ouyang Mingxiu's question, Chu Jiansheng quickly said, "Flying Feather Sect hasn't made any moves, but Quilted Mountain Sect spirit beasts seem to be a little abnormal. However, it didn't say in detail, so Marshal Uncle Tang can't figure out the reason." "Yes, the only thing we can do now is to send more people." Ouyang Mingxiu nodded and said, "Stop them with silence. I'm afraid that's the only way." Zhang Yinzong stopped smiling and nodded in agreement. However, at this moment, a dark green sword light flew in from outside the palace. It was very fast and landed in front of Zhang Yinzong. Chapter 1667. A flying sword message? Zhang Yinzong was stunned. He didn't expect anyone to send him a flying sword message. He scolded, "What are the guards doing?" "Cough, junior brother." Ouyang Mingxiu coughed twice and said, "Which guard dares to intercept a flying sword message from the Xinjian sect's vice sect master? Why don't you take a look at the content? Maybe it's related to Shuiyu Mountain?" Hearing the sect master's words, Zhang Yinzong didn't dare to be negligent. He slapped his hand on the flying sword. "Ha!" A crisp sound was heard. A purple light flashed from the flying sword, and a sword intent appeared. At the same time, a 1-foot mirror appeared in front of everyone. Zhang Yinzong was very familiar with the sword intent. He blurted out, "Yuha?" Then he hurriedly looked at the mirror in front of everyone. The mirror was a little blurry, and the images inside were not very clear. However, Zhang Yutong, Zhang Yuha, and Lu Weigong's images could still be seen. "This!" Zhang Yinzong's eyes widened. He pointed his hand, and a sword energy rushed into the mirror. The entire mirror gradually became clear. "Motherfucker, where did these two brats run off to? They actually dared to send a flying sword message for help?" Zhang Yinzong retracted his hand and cursed. He was shocked again. Dao sect. These two little girls went to the 3 kingdoms of cultivation? Damn it. Who doesn't know you too in the sword sects of Hung country? Maybe they'll take care of you. You ran to the 3 kingdoms of cultivation. Who knows who you are? This is bad, this is bad. As Zhang Yinzong spoke, his whole body suddenly expanded. Then, a sword intent soared into the sky. With a flash of light, his body gradually became blurry, as if he was going to turn into a giant sword. Vice Sect Master Zhang, don't worry. Ouyang Mingxiu saw this, and quickly stopped him. Where are you going? Senior brother Ouyang, Yuha, and Yutong are in trouble. Of course I'm going to save them, Zhang Yinzong said. His whole body had turned into a giant sword. A fiery sword light flashed and flew out of the sword palace. Sai, junior brother, you're too reckless. With such a temperament, how can you be the vice sect leader of my Xian sword sect? Ouyang pointed his finger. Then a 3-colored sword net suddenly appeared above the main hall, blocking in front of the sword light. Seeing that the way was blocked, Zhang Yinzong showed half of his figure and said angrily, Sovereign, what are you doing? Do you want to see Yutong and Yuhi die? Come back first. How long do you think it will take for you to fly to the nearest state of Shi? With my 2nd grade sword transformation art, I'm afraid that 100 days. As Zhang Yinzong spoke, he understood. He sighed and flew back to Ouyang Mingxiu's side. He looked at the motionless mirror not far away and remained silent. Vice Sect Leader Zhang. Ouyang Mingxiu glanced at him and said, You have to remember that you are the Vice Sect leader of the Xianjian sect. You can't be compared to others. You have to be calm and steady. Acting so recklessly is not only inconsistent with your position as the Vice Sect leader, it's also inconsistent with your age and cultivation base. My position as Vice Sect leader was originally. Zhang Yinzong had just finished his sentence when he saw the stern look in Ouyang eyes. He quickly stopped himself and bowed. I was reckless. If it's a matter of the sect, I can still stay calm. But Yutong, and you hear my sweetheart, that Yuhi has the same temperament as me. Seeing them in trouble, I can't help it. Even if you can't help it, you have to endure it. Ouyang said. The position of Vice Sect leader was appointed by the previous sect leader. He knows that you are muddle-headed in small matters and detached from important matters. That's why he appointed you as the Vice Sect leader. Otherwise, with your recklessness, I understand. Zhang Yinzong calmed down and bowed. The image of Yuhi's flying sword message has begun to dissipate. It's obvious that they are in trouble far away from the state of Shi. If it's not in the east of the state of Shi, it's in the other 2 countries. Even if I go now, it'll be too late. You only know now, Ouyang said bluntly. The sword masters present, as well as Jianchong and Ming, know about it already, right? Sect leader, we admire Vice Sect leader for maintaining such a pure heart. This is where the purity of Vice Sect leader's sword spirit lies. Chu Jianchong quickly bowed and said, Besides, it's related to our own blood relatives. No one can stay calm. Zhang Yinzong wiped his bald forehead with his big hand and grinned slightly. Swordsman, quickly summoned Duan Yuming and Wang Shuyao to the Sword Palace. Ouyang rolled her eyes at Zhang Yinzong, who was extremely loyal to her, and said loudly. Then she asked, Junior brother, why did Yutong and Yuhi go to the 3 kingdoms? This, how would I know? Zhang Yinzong had just lowered his big hand, but now he raised it again. He scratched his head bitterly and said, This, I'm afraid I'll have to ask their master. Sai, ever since their parents died in Shuiyu Mountain, they have been wanting to improve their cultivation as soon as possible. Oh, I remember now. They went to look for the mysterious spiritual herb. Mysterious spiritual herb. Ouyang was stunned, and then her face turned gloomy. The mysterious spiritual herb grows in the mysterious illusory realm. Can they go there with their cultivation? Sigh. Zhang Yinzong sighed and said, Yutong and Yuhi want to cultivate the great Yang 6-direction sword spirit. What? Great Yang 6-direction sword spirit? Not only did Ouyang Mingxiu's face darken, even the other 5 sword masters, who had been keeping their mouths shut, exclaimed in surprise. Yang Ming even blurted out, This This is a sword spirit that no one in my Xinjiang sect has been able to cultivate for countless years. It's not too difficult to cultivate the great yin-yang six directions sword spirit, but the requirements are too high. It requires two people with the extreme yang constitution and the extreme yin constitution to cultivate together. Moreover, their minds must be connected and their realms must be the same. Only then can the growth of the two sword spirits progress together. Although Yutong and Yuhi's physiques lean towards yin and yang respectively, they don't meet the cultivation requirements. Yangming said softly. Yes, that's what I told them too. Zhang Yinzong smiled bitterly. At that time, they agreed and said that they had given up on this idea, but half a year later, Yuhi suddenly asked how to cultivate to the extreme yin level if one's physique leans towards yin. I didn't pay much attention to it and casually mentioned a few spiritual herbs that could improve one's physique. Of course, the easiest one to obtain was the mysterious yin spiritual herb. Sai, junior brother, the mysterious yin spiritual herb is one thing, but solitary yin is not common. Just the mysterious yin spiritual herb alone can improve one's physique to the extreme yin level. Yaoming shook her head and said. Zhang Yinzong nodded. I know that, but the other thing is too difficult. I was just saying it casually. Who knew that the two of them really went? Since you know why they went, that's good. The two of them should have gone to the Tai Ching sect in Lian country. After all, that's the closest to the mysterious yin illusory land. Moreover, with Yutong's steady personality, she wouldn't enter the mysterious yin illusory land rashly. The two of them must have thought of a way from the Tai Ching sect. Yangming nodded and said. A female sword master spoke in a low voice. Sect master, you're right. Yuhi is impatient, but Yutong is steady. Moreover, it's very likely that the Tai Ching sect has dark yin spirit herbs. So, I presume that we'll be able to exchange for those things that our sword sect doesn't need. I just don't know whether Yuhi and Yutong met this cultivator on the way there or on the way back. Another male sword master looked at the mirror and said, no matter where, how can our sword sect disciples be bullied by the Dao sect disciples? Yang Mingxiu sneered and said, look at how a disciple from the Dao sect is facing two disciples from the sword sect who are in the bright sword stage. I'm afraid that he's also in the late stage of the foundation establishment stage or the golden core stage. How can a senior bully the weak like this? Although our Xinjiang sect isn't one of the top sects in Huan country, we definitely won't let them bully us. The Dao sect probably hasn't seen the power of our sword sect for many years and has long forgotten the lessons of the past. Vice Sect Master Zhang, don't be anxious. We'll send two people to take a look. If they can deal with it properly, then it'll be good. Otherwise, if someone dares to provoke a battle between sword and Dao, our sword sect will definitely not take a step back. As he spoke, the uncontrollable sword intent suddenly surged up, directly passing through the layers of barriers and piercing into the azure sky. That aura was definitely not inferior to that of a mid-nascent soul stage cultivator. At the same time, the sword origin around everyone present surged uncontrollably. Everyone's sword intent was triggered, and instantly, the entire sword palace was filled with sword intent. Even the sword-shaped runes engraved on the stone walls let out a clanging sound. A short while passed before the entire sword palace calmed down, and then a thin and tall sword cultivator with bright eyes and slanted brows walked briskly into the sword palace. Behind him was an extremely tall woman with a graceful figure. The woman had delicate features and revealed a heroic aura. She was like an unsheathed sharp sword. Disciples Duan Yuming and Wang Shuyao greet Sect Master, Vice Sect Master, and Sword Masters. After the two of them came forward to greet them, Ouyang Mingxiu pointed with his hand and said, Yuming, Shuyao, the two of you have the highest cultivation in our Xian sword sect. We value the two of you the most. The two of you should take a look at Yutong and Yuha's flying sword message. Yes, disciple understands. After the two of them replied, they looked up for a while and exchanged glances. Duan Yuming said, disciple has already seen it. Yutong and Yuha have encountered danger in the cultivation Three Kingdoms. Looking at the image, the surroundings are not clear. They must have been surrounded by a formation. After Duan Yuming said some things, Ouyang Mingxiu smiled and nodded. He waved his hand, and a sword-shaped token flew into his hand. He instructed, "This is the Xian Sword Sect Master's token. Take it. You and Xu Yao will set off immediately and go to Meng Country's Tai Ching sect or the mysterious Yin Illusion realm to find traces of the two of them. The two of them are probably looking for the mysterious Yin spiritual grass." Chapter 1668. Yes, I understand. Duan Yuming kept the sect leader's token and said loudly, "I will not disappoint sect leader. I will find Yu He and Yu Tong with my iron blood." Ouyang Mingxiu nodded and smiled. "You are at the second grade of the illusory sword realm, which is equivalent to the middle stage of the golden core realm. In terms of fighting, you won't lose to the late stage of the golden core realm. The other sects will listen to your words. Make a copy of this flying sword message and bring it with you. With this, even if they are under the Immortal Alliance, they will have nothing to say. Make them obediently hand over my two girls. Even if the Tai Ching sect doesn't know, we must help them find the two girls. Otherwise, the Xianjian sect will attack the country of Xi and the Tai Ching sect." Zhang Yinzong shouted. Vice sect leader Zhang's words are a bit overboard. However, you two must pass this message to the Tai Ching sect in the Meng country. If anything happens to the two girls, the Xinjian sect, no, the sword cultivators of the Huan country will not let this go. Ouyang Mingxiu didn't mind Zhang Yinzong stealing his words. He coldly repeated his words to Duan Yuming and Wang Shuyao. "Yes, we understand." Duan Yuming and Wang Shuyao's expression turned serious. They waved their hands and left the flying sword message image. They bowed and said, "We will not disappoint you. Go. I will wait for your good news in the Sword Palace." Ouyang Mingxiu nodded. Duan Yuming opened his mouth and spat out a sword light. The sword light was like a flying fish, and it circled around Duan Yuming for a while before it exploded. The sword light turned into hundreds of sword lights, and each sword light took the shape of a swimming fish. They swam back and forth like a school of swimming fish, drowning Duan Yuming. After that, Duan Yuming gradually left the ground and flew out of the palace along with the school of fish formed by the sword lights. At the same time, Wang Shuyao's cherry lips parted slightly, and a rainbow-colored ray of light flew out. That ray of light was like a rainbow, and it surrounded Wang Shuyao's graceful body. As Duan Yuming's body flew up, the rainbow-colored ray of light turned into a rainbow and chased after the flying fish, leaving on its own. Before Duan Yuming and Wang Shuyao's swimming fish sword and rainbow sword could fly out of the main hall, another flying sword message came in. At this moment, the sword guard's voice sounded, reporting to the sect master, "A flying sword message from Shuiyu Mountain has arrived." "Yes." Ouyang Mingxiu nodded and pointed with her finger. The messenger flying sword flew into the air and stopped. An old voice was heard. It was Tang Hao, who was guarding Shuiyu Mountain. Reporting to sect leader, "I have found one of the disciples who went missing. However, this child was already delirious. Looking at the situation, he should have been subjected to a soul-searching technique. As for why this is the case, I have yet to find a reason." Soul search technique. When Tang Hao's voice disappeared, Chu Jianchong and Yang Ming's faces were filled with shock. They looked at each other and fell in a deep thought. The sect leader of the Xian Sword sect, Ouyang Mingxiu, also had a fierce look in her eyes. She looked at the flying sword message in the air with an indescribable expression on her face. Far away in the country of Xi, there was also a towering mountain peak. It was also a beautiful valley in spring. A snow-white waterfall hung on the mountain wall, and the loud sound of the waterfall was deafening. It covered the entire valley. The waterfall fell into a deep pool in the valley, and countless bubbles appeared from the depths of the pool, causing the water to splash in all directions. This deep pool was very deep but it didn't look very big. There was a gap in the pool, and the water flowed down a few dozen feet into another pool. This pool was very big, but it was also very quiet. A large amount of water flowed in, but it didn't cause any ripples. This pool was surrounded by peach trees. The peach trees were either pink, snow white, or bright red. The pool was covered in peach blossoms. From time to time, a breeze would blow by, and countless peach blossoms would fall into the pool. The peach blossoms would float for a moment and then sink to the bottom of the pool, never to be seen again. Under the cover of the peach blossoms, there was a cave dwelling at the end of the valley. At this moment, the cave dwelling's door was tightly shut. Fairy Hong Xia, who was dressed in red, was kneeling in front of the cave dwelling. Fairy Hong Xia had been kneeling here for more than 10 days and nights. The cave dwelling's door had always been tightly shut. She didn't dare to move. Her eyes were tightly shut, and her expression was calm. It was as if she had no regrets. With a sound, the cave dwelling's door opened. It made the same sound as the wooden door. A female cultivator who looked to be in her 50s walked out slowly with the same cold expression. Fairy Hong Xia opened her eyes and looked at the female cultivator's face without a single wrinkle. She whispered, "Master." "Humph," the female cultivator snorted and scolded. "You still have the face to call me master. What did you say before you left that day? You definitely won't take off the spirit accumulation talisman. You must cultivate it to the great circle. Now, the Feather Immortal Assemblies competition is over. Not only did you confront your own senior brother for a disciple from another sect, you even took off the spirit accumulation talisman. Do you still have any respect for your master?" Fairy Hong Xia bit her lips and didn't say anything else. However, her gaze was still fixed on the female cultivator. "It seems like you don't have any intention of repentance for the past 10 days. The female cultivator squinted her eyes. She pointed her finger, and a spell was cast on Fairy Hong Xia's body. Within her meridians, limbs, and bones, endless soreness and pain burst forth. Fairy Hong Xia couldn't help but scream. However, it was only a sudden scream, and then there was no more sound. Immediately, Fairy Hong Xia rolled on the ground. Her hands were clenched into fists. Her nails had already pierced into her palms, and fresh blood flowed out. At the same time, between her tightly clenched teeth, traces of blood seeped out. Seeing that her clean red clothes were messy and dirty, the female cultivator waved her hand and cast a spell. Fairy Hong Xia's stiff body gradually softened, and the sound of heavy breathing could be heard from her mouth and nose. After a while, Fairy Hong Xia recovered. She tidied her clothes and knelt down. The female cultivator said coldly, "When you became my disciple that day, I already told you clearly. Our cultivation is the most heaven-defying thing. It's harder than sailing against the current. We can't be lazy. Furthermore, emotions are the most disturbing thing. Once you're tainted by them, you won't get any benefits. That day, you repeatedly promised this old woman and even swore a heavy oath. Only then did this old woman believe you. Otherwise, even if you were also from the Kai family, I would never have accepted you. For the past few years, you have ignored the male disciples of the Huanhua sect. Even that bastard Yin Jiecheng, you treated him coldly. I was very pleased. However, I didn't expect that everything would change after I went to the Feather Immortal Gathering. Let me ask you, is that disciple called Xiao Hua an old acquaintance of yours?" "Yes, I was acquainted with him." Fairy Hong Xia knew that she couldn't hide the truth, so she told her everything. A level 4 Qi refining itinerant cultivator returned Kai Zhuxia's corpse and even gave you the last good fate token of the Huanhua sect? The female cultivator sneered. "I heard that this bastard is now at the beginning of level 12 Qi refining. He even had the strength to defeat Yun Jiecheng. Do you think he was only at level 4 Qi refining that day? He was cheated and sold, and he even helped him count the spiritual stones. Why don't you think about it? If he was only a level 4 Qi refining itinerant cultivator, why would he give you the good fate token? Besides, look Hasn't he already joined the Imperial Thunder Sect? If he didn't have the confidence to join the Imperial Thunder Sect, do you think he would have given you the good fate token? Fairy Hong Xia bit her lips and didn't answer. In fact, she understood very well. Others might not know, but she was the same as Kai Zhuxia. She had practiced the sky-stealing sun-swapping technique since she was young. She was very sensitive to cultivation realms, especially when Xiao Hua was at level 4 Qi refining after that day. He was much weaker than her level 10 Qi refining. Fairy Hongxia understood with a single glance. At this moment, when she thought of Xiao Hua's incomparably pure eyes, her heart felt peaceful. She believed that Xiao Hua would never lie to her. You have nothing to say? The female cultivator sneered. You attacked a disciple of our sect without permission during the Feather Immortal Gathering. According to the sect rules, you will be severely punished. If you regret it, I can give you some advice. Perhaps your punishment will be reduced. I don't regret it, Fairy Hongxia said in a low voice without hesitation. Oh, you really don't regret it? A ripple appeared on the female cultivator's face. She asked curiously, I'm curious as to why you don't regret it. All right, teacher knows that Xiao Hua had returned elder sister's corpse and everything else. Didn't you return his favor by giving him some cultivation method? That was your promise. I have to return it, Fairy Hong Xia said resolutely, but I still feel that I owe him a favor. The sword embryo of the Feather Immortal Gathering is a good opportunity. If I don't return it now, when will I? The female cultivator's expression softened. She nodded and said, That's a good reason. However, Fairy Hong Xia continued, Furthermore, even though I've only spent a short amount of time with him, but, Master, there are some people that even if you were to spend your entire life with them, you would still not develop any feelings for them. But for that person, you only need to look at him once to feel his heart, to feel his pain, and to know that he is the one you have been waiting for all your life. This feeling, I can't describe it with words. Besides, Xiao Hua is now a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. If I don't do something, I'm afraid. You're afraid that other female cultivators will snatch him away? That he can't dual cultivate with you? The female cultivator was stunned for a moment before she sneered. That's what I'm thinking. Of course, I have to say in front of you. But if it's someone else, I will only say that I want to return Xiao Hua's favor. Fairy Hongxia said in a low voice. You're the smart one. Everyone else is a fool. The female cultivator cursed angrily, but then she looked up at the endless peach blossoms in the distance and sighed. I accepted you as my disciple because I wanted you to succeed in your cultivation. I won't let you take the wrong path. As for my story, as a disciple of the Kai clan, I'm sure you know about it, right? Fairy Hongxia hesitated for a moment before she said in a low voice, Master, are you talking about Shang Huoming? Chapter 1669. Even after hearing the name, Shang Huoming, the female cultivator's expression remained cold. She snorted and said, Even you, a disciple of the Kai family of Luyang, know about my past. It seems that I have quite a reputation in the Kai family. Fairy Hongxia heard this and quickly said, Master, the name of Kai Qin is not what you want. You are a golden core stage cultivator, the pride of the Kai family. This golden core stage cultivator of the Huanhua sect, who is also Fairy Hongxia's master, was also a member of the Kai family. Her name was Kai Qin. My actions are in accordance with the Great Tao. Why would I care about what others say? Kai Qin sneered. I have told you that if not for your good aptitude, I would not have taken you in, even if you were a disciple of the Kai family. I know. Fairy Hongxia lowered her head and said, Since you know about my relationship with Shang Huoming, you must know what happened, right? Yes, I know. Fairy Hongxia raised her head slightly, her jade-like face carrying a trace of admiration. Back then, for Shang Huoming's Xiao Yuehong, Master disregarded the clan leader's objections and broke out of the clan to marry Shang Huoming. After that, Xiao Yuehong became Shang Huoming's sect leader, and Master became Shang Huoming's sect leader's wife. A cold light flashed in Kai Chen's eyes, and she said angrily, "Girl, is this what I asked you?" Fairy Hong Xia's delicate body trembled, and she said softly, "Yes, but after Master went to Shang Huoming, her cultivation had been hovering in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Later, when Master was traveling in the Xiaoyu continent, she had an epiphany of the Tao of cultivation. Following that, she had the opportunity to join the Huanhua sect. In less than 100 years, she had cultivated from foundation establishment to golden core stage." So you do know about this." Kai Chen's face turned cold, and she scolded. "I was childish back then. I was trapped by love and rebelled against the family. Later on, my cultivation improved on Yellow Flower Ridge, but it was not the right path. How could I become a great person? Love has always been the enemy of cultivation. If I had not broken free from Shang Huoming's mundane affairs and cut off my love, how could I have achieved what I have today? This old woman's lesson is still vivid in my mind. Why do you insist on following this old woman's path?" As she spoke, Kai Chen's face turned green as she pointed her finger once more. "Ouch!" Fairy Hong Xia cried out in pain as she crawled on the ground once more, rolling around in pain. "Who is it?" At this moment, Kai Chen raised her head and coldly shouted at the sky outside the valley. "Martial Uncle Kai." Junior Zhang Lihan greets Martial Uncle Kai. A voice came from outside the valley. Kai Chen snorted coldly. With a wave of her hand, she removed the restrictive spell on Fairy Hong Xia and scolded, "Yun Jiechong's master is here. Look at the trouble you have caused me. Kneel at the side." "Yes, your disciple understands." Fairy Hong Xia did not dare to say anything else as she continued to kneel on the ground. Then, Kai Chen waved her white sleeves, and a ray of light hit the sky outside the valley. With a soft sound, it seemed that some restrictive spells had been opened, and 2 foundation establishment stage cultivators descended from the sky. The person in front was in the late stage of foundation establishment stage. He was dressed in green and was short in stature. The 2 tufts of beard at the corners of his mouth were very obvious, like the tail of a mouse. This person's face was dry, and he looked even more bitter. Compared to Yun Jiechong, who was in the early stage of foundation establishment stage, he was like heaven and earth. However, this cultivator held his head high, while Yun Jiechong lowered his head. Even though he was much taller than this cultivator, he still lowered his head and appeared to be very respectful. "Zhang Lihan, you have never been to my Peach Blossom Valley. What brings you here today?" Kai Chen did not go to greet them. She just stood there quietly and waited for the 2 to come closer before she asked, "Martial Uncle, this Peach Blossom Valley is your place of meditation. Everyone in the Huanhua sect knows that Martial Uncle pursues the way of the heavens. If not for something important, I would not dare to disturb Martial Uncle's meditation." Zhang Lihan lowered her voice and bowed. Then she turned her head and said, "Yun Jiechong, come and greet Martial Uncle Kai Chen." Junior Yun Jiechong greets Martial Uncle Kai. Yun Jiechong did not dare to be negligent. He tidied up his clothes and stopped looking at Fairy Hong Xia. He then bowed respectfully. "Well, get up." Kai Chen flicked her sleeves and said, "Now you are also a foundation establishment stage cultivator. You are considered to have stepped into the door of cultivation. You are so young. I still have to congratulate you." "I dare not. I'm still far from Junior Sister Kai. This is all thanks to Martial Uncle Kai's guidance," Yun Jiechong said in a low voice. Kai Chen turned her head and looked at Fairy Hong Xia, who was kneeling with her back facing her. She said, "This girl is too stubborn. I'm just punishing her. Even though she has the cultivation, she does not have the state of mind. She has taken a wrong path. How could she achieve great things?" Yun Jiechong looked at his master and smiled apologetically. Junior Sister was just confused for a moment. She must have her difficulties. Otherwise, she would not have done such a thing. Kai Chi nodded. "You are indeed a foundation establishment stage disciple. You are very knowledgeable." Then, she changed her tone and asked, "May I know why you have come to the Peach Blossom Valley today?" Zhang Lihan took a step forward and clapped her hands. She took out a token and handed it to Kai Qin. She smiled and said, I have received the order from the sect leader to discuss something with Senior Kai. Kai Qin did not take the token. She only scanned it with her spiritual will and nodded. Go ahead. Yes. Zhang Lihan seemed to know Kai Qin's temper. She kept the sect leader's token and looked at Fairy Hongxia. She said, what Martial Uncle Kai's disciple did at the Feather Immortal meet today. Perhaps she had her difficulties. However, she really destroyed the momentum of our Huanhua sect. Our Huanhua sect's disciple could have won the Feather Immortal meet and obtained the extraterrestrial divine item. However, because of her, the Imperial Thunder sect gained the upper hand. Not only did she destroy the prestige of our Huanhua sect's disciple, but she also made our Huanhua sect a laughingstock. The sect leader has ordered that if we do not punish her severely, we will not be able to convince the public. We will not be able to set the rules of the Huanhua sect. Kai Qin frowned and said coldly, how does the sect leader intend to deal with her? Are you going to expel her from the Huanhua sect? Are you going to abolish her cultivation? Of course not. Zhang Lihan smiled apologetically. Your disciple is very talented. After she entered the Huanhua sect with a good fate token, she reached the foundation establishment stage within a few years. Moreover, she has completed the Qi refinement stage. How can we abandon such a good disciple so easily? The sect leader has ordered that she is to go into seclusion in the Valley of Ice and reflect on her mistakes for 20 years. Hearing this, Kai Qin sucked in a breath of cold air. The astral winds from the frozen ice valley were bone-chilling. Not to mention 20 years, even a single day and night could turn a person into ice. The sect leader actually wants to punish Fairy Hongxia to go into seclusion in the Valley of Ice. She must be really angry. Fairy Hongxia, who was kneeling behind Kai Qin, also turned pale when she heard this. I haven't even met the sect leader yet, and you've already brought the sect leader's order. This is really timely. Kai Qin sneered. I'll bring my disciple to meet the sect leader now. Martial Ant, don't be anxious. Zhang Lihan quickly said. The sect leader has ordered that this order will not be changed. Kai Qin was furious when she heard this. Martial Ant, don't be anxious. Zhang Lihan seemed to have a card up her sleeve. She smiled and said, I haven't finished relaying the sect leader's order. Speak. Kai Qin said angrily. The sect leader has ordered that Kai Hongxia made a mistake first and should be punished severely. However, Kai Hongxia's talent is very good, and she is an elite disciple of the Huanhua sect. We must consider her future, considering that she is young and ignorant and also has Yun Guicheng's protection. The affection is commendable. In view of this, Yun Guicheng and Kai Hongxia are to become a pair of dual cultivators. Firstly, both of them can encourage each other and achieve great Dao together. Secondly, we can eliminate the Huanhua sect from being a laughingstock in front of other sects. What? Kai Qin was stunned when she heard this. She had never thought that the sect leader would punish her in this way. At the same time, Fairy Hongxia's eyes narrowed. Although she did not say anything, endless thoughts arose in her heart. Yin Guicheng bowed and said, I've admired Junior Martial's sister Hongxia's character for a long time, and I've always treated Junior Martial's sister as my ideal partner for dual cultivation. However, I was afraid of delaying Junior Martial's sister's cultivation. Even if I could build my foundation, I wouldn't dare to disturb her. I don't know why I dare to tell Martial Ant in advance. Fortunately, the sect leader empathized with my painstaking efforts and took this opportunity to eliminate the bad influence that Junior's sister has caused in the Feather Immortal Assembly. These were all suggested by the sect leader. I have never dared to use these to threaten Martial Ant and Junior sister. Seeing how gentle and elegant Yin Guicheng was, even Kai Qin was moved. At this moment, she had thought about many things. The sect leader's decision was appropriate. He could not only avoid Kai Hongxia's punishment, but also eliminate the bad influence. If news of this spread, The disciples of other sects would also know that Fairy Hong Xia of the Huanhua sect did not hesitate to fall out with her lover in order to return the favor of the Imperial Thunder sect's disciple. Such a character was rare in the cultivation world. But Kai Qin naturally thought of what Fairy Hong Xia had said and said to herself, "Sigh, this girl's character, I'm afraid it's not very possible." Immediately, Kai Qin turned her head and said, "Hong Xia, you've heard the sect leader's order. Do you have a choice?" "Martial Ant, you don't have to be so busy," Yin Guicheng hurriedly said with a smile. "The sect leader has given Junior's sister 10 days to consider. It's not too late to wait until Junior's sister has thought it through." "There's no need." Although Fairy Hong Xia was kneeling, her voice was still cold. "Why do I need 10 days to consider such a thing? I'll give you an answer now. I will enter the Valley of Ice tomorrow." "Junior's sister," Yin Guicheng said anxiously, "the Valley of Ice is not a good place to be. You have to think carefully. Once you enter, you will either die or be injured. Without cultivation, it's all for naught." Fairy Hong Xia's back was facing Yin Guicheng. Her voice was unusually firm. "It's just the astral winds from the sky. Even if I die, I will walk my own path. I will never do anything that I don't want to do." "Junior sister, why do you have to do this?" Yin Guicheng's face was pale, and his eyes were filled with a strange expression. He had not expected Fairy Hong Xia to be so heartless to him. "Xiaohua, it must be Xiaohua." Yin Guicheng's face was expressionless, but his heart was filled with malevolence. Chapter 1670. After sending off Jiang Lihan and Yun Jicheng, Kai Qin watched as Yun Jicheng's figure disappeared into the air. Without turning back, she said coldly, "So you decided this? If so, why did you do it in the first place?" "Master, a person should have a belief. If I didn't have this belief, I would have been a disciple. Since I have this belief, then, I'll carry it out to the end." Since Fairy Hong Xia had decided, she naturally said calmly, "If so, then I'll do it in the first place." Hee, what a pity, what a joke." Kai Qin sneered. "Wasn't it the same when I rebelled against the Kai family?" At that time, Xiao Hongyue, who killed Hua Ming, naturally knew about it. But what could he do in the future when I couldn't improve my cultivation? Wouldn't he still be helpless? And you're even better. You made this decision far away from the Imperial Thunder sect. Your punishment will definitely not spread to the Huanhua sect. That little bastard Xiaohua, I'm afraid he won't know about it for 20 years. 20 years. Even though there's no concept of time in cultivation, the world changes too quickly. How can you know the changes in other people's minds? Even if you went through a near-death experience, how can Xiaohua know about your suffering after coming out of the Cold Wind Valley? Fairy Hong Xia bit her lips and stared at the ground, not saying a word. "Even though you don't like Yin Jicheng, since things have come to this, I think you should agree for now. Drag it out one day at a time." "No, master, I won't compromise." Fairy Hong Xia flatly refused. A rare look of pity flashed through Kai Qin's eyes, but it was immediately replaced by coldness. "This old woman will ask you one last time. Everything you've experienced is what this old woman has experienced. Everything you're saying now is what this old woman has said to the patriarch before. This old woman's example will be your teacher for the future. The detours I've taken will be what you'll have to face in the future. Moreover, your situation is even more serious. The Cold Wind Valley, even I don't dare to enter it easily. Your near-death experience is considered light. Now that things had come to this, how could Fairy Hong Xia not hesitate? If one were to talk about what she had done in the bright realm of the Tai Ching sect, it was true that she had feelings for Xiao Huaqing. But on the surface, it could also be understood as returning Xiao Hua's favor. After all, she had said those words through telepathy, and no one else knew about it. But what about Xiao Hua's thoughts? Xiao Hua didn't say anything. Fairy Hong Xia's cleverness was to use an ambiguous attitude to make her intentions clear to Xiao Hua in front of everyone. Just as she said, If she didn't make it clear in the How realm, she really didn't know when she would be able to make it clear. Moreover, even if Xiao Hua had other thoughts, she naturally had a reason to explain it. However, it was precisely this kind of petty cleverness that caused her to fall into another embarrassing situation. Xiao Hua didn't make it clear to her, and Fairy Hong Xia leisurely flew away to build her foundation. Xiao Hua didn't even have time to say a single word. Fairy Hong Xia had expected the punishment from the Cleansing Flower sect, but she never expected it to be so severe. Of course, this was just a pretense. The real intention of the head of Huanhua sect was to let her practice dual cultivation with Yun Guichong to eliminate the sect's laughingstock. What should I do? What should I do? Fairy Hong Xia hesitated at this crucial moment. At this moment, in the Kai family of Liang, Xiao Hua's low cultivation level, clear eyes, and the calm expression he had when he handed over the storage bag to her surfaced in Fairy Hong Xia's mind. That's right. When a level 4 Qi refining rogue cultivator faced that storage bag, it was like a beggar seeing a mountain of gold. He was actually able to keep his promise. Keeping her promise, it was easy to say, but how difficult was it to do? Especially when it came to fulfilling the promise of a dead person. This kind of person isn't worth my effort. Fairy Hong Xia asked herself, won't this kind of person have a bright future? Will this kind of person ignore everything I've done for him? A few rhetorical questions emerged from the bottom of her heart, and Fairy Hong Xia had a plan in mind. However, Cold Wind Valley. That's right, Fairy Hong Xia suddenly remembered Kai Qin's persuasion just now. Her tone seemed to be very strict at the start, but later on, she seemed to have loosened up. This final question actually had the intention of sounding her out. Taking a deep breath, Fairy Hong Xia said indifferently, Master, this disciple has made up her mind. As a disciple of the Kai family, I will never regret my own choices. Even if this disciple's soul is blown away by the astral winds, I will never give in to the threats of others. Although Fairy Hong Xia's tone was indifferent, it was resolute and without hesitation. Hearing this, Kai Qin's eyes flashed. Don't be stubborn. I'll return to the residence to cultivate. I'll give you 2 days. If you regret it, it won't be too late to look for me. Kai Qin did not say anything else and flew into the cave. Fairy Hong Xia knelt in front of the cave for another 2 days. When Kai Qin came out again, Fairy Hong Xia was still willing to enter Cold Wind Valley. So I forget it. The stubbornness in the blood of the Kai family is not something that can be easily changed. Kai Qin stared at Fairy Hong Xia for a long time and sighed. She clapped her hands and took out a simple phoenix hairpin from her storage bag. With a swing of her hand, she flew to Fairy Hong Xia and whispered, Take a look. Fairy Hong Xia furrowed her brows when she heard her master's voice transmission. However, she felt a sense of relief in her heart. She immersed her spirit sense into it, and her expression changed drastically. She blurted out, Ice Phoenix cultivation method? Kai Qin waved her hand, and a ray of light flashed past. A sound barrier was activated and sealed Fairy Hong Xia's voice. You're already a foundation establishment cultivator, and you still don't know your place? I've thought highly of you for nothing. This disciple is too shocked. Please forgive me, Master. Fairy Hong Xia's eyes turned quickly, and she whispered back. This disciple has never thought that my Kai family's legendary mental cultivation method would be seen here. How can my Kai family be compared to an ordinary cultivation family? I don't want to tell you these things now. If fate brings us together, you'll know in the future. Kai Qin sneered. Use a few days to memorize this Ice Phoenix mental cultivation method. If there's anything you don't understand, ask me. This Cold Wind Valley is a place of death for others. For my Kai family's disciples? That might not be the case. Since you've chosen this path and you're of my Kai family's bloodline, then this old one can only let you try. If you succeed, TSK, not to mention Jindan, even Yuanying. Master, Fairy Hong Xia's face lit up with joy. Don't be happy too early. Kai Qin said coldly. This old one is only saying that it's possible. The possibility is extremely small. For so many years, no one in my Kai family has been able to awaken the thing in their bloodline. Even this old one can't do it. For you, there's only one possibility. If you don't succeed, only death awaits you. This disciple understands. Fairy Hong Xia retracted her joy and nodded. Why is this Ice Phoenix mental cultivation method incomplete? Fairy Hong Xia frowned after looking at it for a while. Silly girl. What kind of mental cultivation method is the Ice Phoenix mental cultivation method? How would you know? Wait until you've mastered it and save your life. When you have the chance, you could go to the Kai family's ancestral land to search for it. Kai Qin said with a rare smile. Kai family's ancestral land? Fairy Hong Xia asked curiously. How would this disciple not know? What's the difference between knowing now and knowing in the future? If you can't get out of Cold Wind Valley, what's the use of knowing so much? Kai Qin said bluntly. This disciple understands. This disciple will never reveal it. Fairy Hong Xia's expression turned cold as she transmitted her voice. You're on your own now. With a wave of her hand, Kai Qin cast a few spells and set up a restriction around Fairy Hong Xia. She then flew into the cave, leaving Fairy Hong Xia to comprehend the Kai family's Ice Phoenix mental cultivation method. In a quiet little mountain village, there weren't many villagers in the village. Every one of them looked simple and honest. In a small courtyard in the mountain village, a beautiful woman dressed in ordinary village clothes sat on a crooked bamboo chair with a cold expression. This woman was Zhang Yutong. However, Zhang Yutong's cultivation was sealed at this time. Apart from her threatening temperament and plain clothes, no one could tell that she was a sword cultivator. In front of her was Zhang Qingxiao dressed in camouflage. May I ask this sect leader, which sect are you from? Which sect is this? Zhang Yutong looked at the mysterious cultivator in front of her and couldn't help but ask. Do you think this old man will answer you? Zhang Qingxiao smiled and said, You just stay here obediently, and this old man won't do anything to you. You must be from the Devil Realm, Zhang Yutong suddenly said. Zhang Qingxiao was not surprised and said with a smile, Smart people don't live long. Miss Zhang, this old man advises you. It's better if you haven't seen anything. Haven't seen anything? You don't seem to understand us, sword cultivators. Zhang Yutong sneered. If you're not from the Devil Realm, then you're a devil cultivator. You used your identity as a devil cultivator to kidnap, and you use the identity of a Dao sect to do things. Why do you think I can't guess? Then tell me, what is this old man's plan? Zhang Qingxiao was interested and asked with a smile. Of course, it's to provoke the conflict between us sword cultivators and the Dao sect. Let us fight each other, and you devil cultivators will reap the benefits. Zhang Yutong hit the nail on the head. Zhang Qingxiao pondered for a moment and nodded slightly. Miss Zhang's idea is similar to this old man's plan. Do you think we sword cultivators are brainless people that will leave our nest for a small girl like me? What if we have the image of the flying sword message and your sister's statement? Plus, we haven't heard from Miss Zhang for many years. Zhang Qingxiao smiled and said, Even if others don't care, what will Miss Zhang's twin sister do? After she does something, how will the Changbai sect or Tai Ching sect react? If these two sects move, what will the sword cultivators do? Zhang Yutong knew that this was just speculation and a possibility, but she really didn't know what would happen in the future. Who would think that she would be kidnapped by a devil cultivator? Chapter 1671. Have you ever thought about the battle between sword cultivators and Taoist sects? What would happen to the millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountain? Zhang Yutong asked anxiously. Miss Zhang, don't forget that I'm a demon cultivator. What does this have to do with me? Zhang Qingxiao laughed. The more chaotic your Xiaoyu continent is, the happier I'll be. Zhang Yutong pursed her lips and stared at Zhang Qingxiao. After a while, she whispered, I wonder if Senior is provoking a battle for the revival of demon cultivators? You must know that Xiaoyu continent is a continent of humans. Demon cultivators will never become mainstream. Is that so? Zhang Qingxiao sneered and said, all the cultivation sect in the Xiaoyu continent cherish their own techniques and only pass on the cultivation techniques to their own disciples. Even the cultivation aristocratic families, although many of them rely on the cultivation sects and can't develop themselves very well, what about them? What's their attitude towards other rogue cultivators? They despise and cherish their own cultivation techniques. How can such a secluded cultivation bring prosperity to Taoist sects? Isn't this what you sword cultivators do? How many rogue cultivators are there in Xiaoyu continent without cultivation techniques and medicinal pills? Miss Zhang, do you know? In my heavenly demonic sect, no matter how high or low your cultivation base is, as long as you swear loyalty to my heavenly demonic sect, you'll immediately have cultivation techniques and medicinal pills to improve your cultivation base. Tell me, which part of us isn't inferior to the famous Taoist sects and sword cultivator sects? But Zhang Yutong said anxiously, Senior, you're teaching everyone regardless of their background. Won't you be letting more unscrupulous people grasp heaven-defying power? The entire continent will. Zhang Yutong still wanted to say chaos, but she suddenly remembered that heavenly demonic sect was originally a sect of demons. Why would they care about the stability of Xiaoyu continent? She couldn't help but stop. Miss Zhang, you seem to understand? Zhang Qingxiao sneered. Heavenly demonic sect opened the door of convenience for any cultivator who should be able to cultivate. It's in accordance with the will of heaven, giving others a glimmer of hope. If heavenly demonic sect doesn't prosper, the heavens won't tolerate it. It's just a small sect of demon cultivators. What great power can it have? Zhang Yutong sneered. Almighty? I don't need any almighty ability. Zhang Qingxiao seemed to be very talkative. He smiled and said, I only need the ability to help people build their foundation. Didn't you see Lu Weigang? I don't know how long he's been cultivating, and I don't know how long he'll be able to reach foundation establishment, but I only need to stretch out my hand to make him reach foundation establishment. Tell me, if other people, those cultivators who failed to reach the foundation establishment realm, knew that our heavenly devil sect had such a technique, would they join us? Zhang Yutong's expression suddenly changed. Wasn't that the case? What was the Feather Immortal Assembly for? Isn't it just to let cultivators build their foundation? But even so, only a dozen or so disciples had reached the foundation establishment stage. The other hundreds of disciples had come in vain. The younger disciples were still fine, as they still had a chance to reach the foundation establishment stage in the future. But what about the older disciples, or those who had already failed to reach the foundation establishment stage? If they knew that the heavenly demonic sect had such an opportunity, wouldn't they have rushed over like ducks? No matter how strange the devil path cultivation method is still a devil path cultivation method. How can it be compared with our cultivation method? Zhang Yutong argued. The world only sees it as a failure. Who cares about the methods used? You wait at the Feather Immortal Assembly. Oh, I'm wrong. Miss Zhang, you came to Ming Kingdom for other matters. Those cultivators who were cruel in the Feather Immortal Assembly and fought for the chance to reach the foundation establishment stage, when they killed each other, did they ever think of doing it openly? Zhang Qingxiao retorted. This. Zhang Yutong bit her lip and no longer spoke. Right now, her sword chi could only flow through her meridians, and she was unable to use her flying swords. Moreover, her divine sense was completely restricted and she could not release it at all. Although her storage bag was still tied to her waist, she had no way of knowing if Zhang Qingxiao had taken the things inside. Moreover, Zhang Qingxiao's words were harsh, and she could not refute them. Devil Path cultivation method will eventually flourish on the Dawn Rain continent. Ms. Zhang, you'd better stay here and wait for the situation on the Dawn Rain continent. If the Dawn Rain continent is in chaos, you still have a chance to live. If my plan doesn't succeed, Zhang Qingxiao sneered. His figure flashed, and a few streaks of blood-red light flashed. Zhang Qingxiao's figure mysteriously disappeared, leaving only a few wisps of black smoke. And the black smoke also disappeared in a flash. Hiss! Zhang Yutong sucked in a breath of cold air. In the Huan country, she had seen millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountain. However, she had never seen such a strange method of devil path. She couldn't help but be amazed. At this time, while she was worried about Zhang Yuhe, she was also worried about Huan Sword Sect's reaction. Please don't fall into this devil path's trap. Zhang Yutong secretly prayed. However, she knew very well that if her sister Zhang Yuhe returned to Huan Sword Sect, with Zhang Yuhe's impatient character, Huan Sword Sect would definitely fall into her trap. Even if it was just based on the image of the flying sword message, Huan Sword Sect would definitely make a wrong judgment. Now, it all depended on sect leader Ouyang's judgment of the situation. Sigh, Zhang Yutong sighed. That faint tone was almost going to linger for 3 days. Just as Zhang Qingxiao said, for more than 10 days, no one came to disturb Zhang Yutong. After Zhang Yutong's initial irritation, she calmed down. The sword origin in her meridians could still flow. Although she couldn't activate the flying sword, she could still cultivate. Zhang Yutong only focused on her cultivation, hoping that she could break free from Zhang Qingxiao's shackles. Unfortunately, she didn't know what kind of demonic shackles Zhang Qingxiao used. Zhang Yutong cultivated for more than half a year, and her cultivation had increased by a lot. However, she still couldn't find the trick to shackle herself. She still couldn't break free from the shackles. Today, Zhang Yutong couldn't bear it any longer. She looked left and right at the relatively clean house. Looking at the tranquil courtyard outside the window, she stood up and stepped out of the house for the first time. Outside the house was a small courtyard of a farmer's house. The smell of cow dung entered her nose, causing Zhang Yutong to frown. Looking at the crooked jujube tree in the middle of the courtyard, Zhang Yutong sighed. This kind of place, why would cultivators come here? How would they be able to find her? Cough, cough. Zhang Yutong coughed twice as her eyes darted around. She wanted to see if there were any cultivators watching her. However, the entire courtyard was silent. Only the sound of the wind and the smell of grass could be heard. Could it be that there's a restriction on the courtyard? Maybe the disciples of the Heavenly Demon Sect let their guard down? Zhang Yutong thought to herself as she tried to walk to the entrance of the courtyard. To her surprise, the wooden door of the courtyard opened with a creak. Just like the door of a farmer's house, it didn't have any restriction on it. Bang, bang, bang. Zhang Yutong's heart skipped a beat. She felt that this was her chance to escape. So, without thinking, she quickly jumped out and roughly glanced at the direction of the small village. Then, she turned around and ran towards a slightly higher slope beside the small courtyard. The slope was on the left side of the small courtyard. Although the neighing of cows and horses and the quacking of chickens and ducks could be heard in the small village, there were no human voices. Zhang Yutong ran along the slope to the back of the courtyard. Just as she turned around a big locust tree, a warm and magnetic voice sounded from the top of the tree. Fellow Taoist Zhang, where are you going? Sigh. Zhang Yutong sighed and stopped. She raised her head and saw Zhang Qingxiao in a white robe among the thick green leaves of the big locust tree. His deep eyes were looking at her with a smile. Looking at Zhang Qingxiao's handsome face and impressive temperament, Zhang Yutong couldn't help but sigh again. She raised her voice and said, "Greetings, fellow cultivator. I'm just here for some fresh air." Zhang Yutong's face turned red. "Oh, I see." Zhang Qingxiao smiled and said, "If that's the case, fellow Taoist Zhang, please do as you wish. However, it's best that you don't leave this small village. Otherwise, I won't be able to answer to the sect leader." "Fellow Taoist, you are so kind. I thank you." Zhang Yutong smiled and slowly walked up the slope. She looked up and saw that she was no longer on the grassland. A winding stream flowed by the side of the village. On the other side of the stream was a piece of farmland. At this time, the crops were ripe. Zhang Qingxiao saw that Zhang Yutong had stopped. He shrugged and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, you don't have any divine abilities. Where can you escape to? As long as I release my divine sense, won't it be easy to capture you? Fellow Taoist Zhang, you don't have to thank me." Zhang Yutong looked at the unfamiliar countryside scenery, and a strange light flashed in her eyes. After a moment, she cupped her hands and said, "Fellow Taoist, how should I address you?" Zhang Qingxiao pondered for a moment and said with a smile, "What a coincidence. I also have the surname Zhang." So it's fellow Taoist Zhang. Nice to meet you." Zhang Yutong looked around and whispered, "Since we're from the same family, I have a question, but I don't know if I should ask." Fellow Taoist Zhang, don't tell me you want to ask how to escape?" Zhang Qingxiao asked curiously. "Do you think I'm that ignorant?" Zhang Yutong smiled and said, "I just want to know, why did fellow Taoist Zhang join the demon sect?" Zhang Qingxiao's eyes stared straight at Zhang Yutong, and Zhang Yutong's eyes didn't show any weakness. The two looked at each other for a moment, and Zhang Qingxiao whispered, "Does this have anything to do with fellow Taoist Zhang?" Zhang Yutong finally moved her eyes away and looked at the village not far away. She whispered, "I see fellow Taoist Zhang's appearance is the first I've seen in my life. Although I can't release my divine sense, I can guess that a cultivator with fellow Taoist Zhang's appearance can't be bad. With fellow Taoist Zhang's aptitude, it's possible for you to join any cultivation sect. How could you fall to the demon sect?" Zhang Qingxiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She raised her eyebrows, and a smile flashed across her handsome face. Could it be fellow Taoist Zhang wants to invite I to join the Xinjian sect? Zhang Yutong bit her lips and rolled her eyes. She nodded and said, "I don't want to bewitch you. If I really meet fellow Taoist Zhang, I will definitely invite you to join my Xinjian sect." Ha ha ha! Zhang Qingxiao raised her head and laughed. Her body moved up and down along with the branches. Zhang Yutong's face changed, and she said angrily, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, you don't believe me?" Chapter 1672. When Zhang Qingxiao finally stopped laughing, he cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your high opinion. I'm afraid it's impossible for me to join the Xinjian sect." Why is that? Zhang Yutong was secretly happy to hear Zhang Qingxiao's explanation. "Don't ask too much." Zhang Qingxiao waved his hand impatiently and said, "You should think about your own safety first. My safety is not in my hands." Zhang Yutong sighed and said, "I would like to know more about the demonic sect. I also want to know why someone like Zhang Qingxiao joined the demonic sect. Is it that important to reach the foundation establishment stage?" Foundation establishment? Zhang Qingxiao glanced at Zhang Yutong, then looked at the mountains in the distance. The sun was setting in the west, and the orange-red clouds scattered over the mountains. After a while, Zhang Qingxiao said faintly, "How about foundation establishment? How about golden core? But it's all loneliness. How can it be compared to family? How can it be compared to reuniting with family? I didn't join the demonic sect for cultivation, but for an unforgettable blood feud. For this blood feud, I wouldn't hesitate to become a demon." Zhang Yutong's heart trembled when she saw Zhang Qingxiao's handsome face flash with a trace of ferocity. She pondered for a moment and said softly, "I didn't know. Please forgive me if I made you sad." Zhang Qingxiao stared into the distance as if he didn't hear anything. Zhang Yutong also looked at the setting sun in the distance. Seeing that half of the sun had disappeared, she asked again, "Zhang Qingxiao, if it's just for the blood feud, the Xinjian sect can help you." "Really?" Zhang Qingxiao turned his head slightly and looked at Zhang Yutong, who was a little embarrassed. He smiled and said, "How can a Xinjian sect help I? Does Zhang Qingxiao know who the enemy is? If they have a name, then it's easy. You should know the flying swords of the sword cultivators. They are much better than the cultivators of the same level." Zhang Yutong was happy and whispered, "Haha, I understand Zhang Qingxiao's thoughts." Zhang Qingxiao smiled and said, Unfortunately, I don't know who the enemy is. Sigh, this is going to be difficult. Zhang Yutong's face darkened as she said, Then, even if you join the Heavenly Demon sect, you won't be able to get your revenge. Zhang Qingxiao did not answer Zhang Yutong's question. Instead, she asked, What if I know the name of the enemy? Your Xian sword sect dares to make a move? Of course, I can make the decision. Zhang Yutong puffed up her chest, making it even more perky. What is the cultivation level of your sect leader? Zhang Qingxiao asked with a smile. Second grade sword transformation stage. It's equivalent to the middle nascent soul stage of the Taoist sect. Zhang Yutong said, Isn't that enough to avenge you? Ha ha, fellow Taoist Zhang. Zhang Qingxiao clapped his hands and said, I appreciate fellow Taoist Zhang's kind intentions. However, do you think that your sect leader will help you? Furthermore, at this point, Zhang Qingxiao's tone became somewhat gloomy. Furthermore, I's enemies are two nascent soul stage cultivators. Do you think that your Xian sword sect will take action? Zhang Yutong never thought that Zhang Qingxiao's enemies would be nascent soul stage cultivators. She couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. That's right, a nascent soul stage cultivator isn't just a problem for a single cultivator. It's a problem for an entire sect. Xian Sword Sect can't possibly face two nascent soul stage cultivators for Zhang Qingxiao. Even if it's for me, I have to face two nascent soul stage cultivators and two sects. Fellow Taoist Zhang, now do you understand why I joined the Heavenly Demon sect? The corners of Zhang Qingxiao's lips curled into a smile. It was indescribably desolate, and even the residual red in the sky could not compare to it. Only the sect master of the Heavenly Demon sect would have such courage to help this poor Taoist avenge my debt of gratitude. Zhang Yutong's heart was also sad. She knew that the cultivator in front of her might not be a nascent soul stage cultivator or a golden core stage cultivator, but the hatred in his heart was boundless. He swore to kill even a nascent soul stage cultivator. This kind of man who did not care about his own situation and whether or not he had joined the Heavenly Demon sect, she was afraid that she could not simply see him as a Heavenly Demon sect cultivator. Fellow Taoist Zhang, can you tell I a little bit? Zhang Yutong asked tentatively. Perhaps there are other better ways to solve your problem? Other ways? Zhang Qingxiao's eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule. She shook her head and said, Fellow Taoist Zhang, it's already late. You should go back early. Although my sect leader is not here, there are other disciples watching over me. If they see me, I will be punished. Seeing that Zhang Qingxiao was avoiding the topic, Zhang Yutong could only smile and say, I was just curious. At the same time, I was afraid that fellow Taoist would be blinded by hatred and affect your cultivation. Since fellow Taoist does not want to say more, then I will go back. After saying that, she turned around and went down the hill. She went back to the small courtyard. Zhang Qingxiao glanced at Zhang Yutong's back and turned to look at the twilight in the sky. She muttered to herself, a blood feud. If it could be easily avenged, why would it be called a blood feud? Then, a trace of bitterness appeared on her face. As far as she knew, Duan Yuming and Wang Shuyao from the Xinjian sect had entered Ming Kingdom and found the Taiqing sect, but her plan had not been fully realized. The Taiqing sect and the Changbai sect had sent disciples to search for Zhang Yutong. Even the disciples of the various sects who participated in the Feather Immortal Gathering were investigated. All the sects wanted to find Lu Weigong's whereabouts through clues to prove that the Taoist sect had nothing to do with this matter. As for the Xinjian sect, they did not send any other disciples to question her. Where did Zhang Yue go? Did she encounter any danger? Zhang Qingxiao asked herself again. If she can go back according to my plan, she will definitely be able to stir up trouble. Without this girl, the situation is not good enough. Xiaohua, my good junior brother, second brother has already excluded you from the list. But I didn't expect you to reach the 12th layer in just a few years. What secrets do you have? Could it be that Shang Huaming's annihilation has something to do with you? The Imperial Thunder Sect is a famous sect, but with your talent, how could you reach the late stage of the Qi refinement realm so easily? Zhang Qingxiao's face showed a trace of anger again. If Master's death has anything to do with you, don't blame me for being ruthless. 3 nascent soul cultivators have to be killed, and you, a Qi refinement realm disciple, I will also kill you. Among the 3 peaks of the Taiqing sect, on the human peak, the rightmost peak, someone also mentioned Xiao Hua's name in a cave. This was a very spacious cave. On the cloud platform, Deming frowned, but his eyes were closed and his face was very ugly. There was a praying mat 10 feet in front of him. Rinju's face was also gloomy. Although her eyes were not closed, her brows were also tightly knitted. In the corner of the cave, thin smoke floated from an incense burner. The smoke went straight into the air and didn't dissipate for a long time. In the corner opposite the incense burner, a lifelike puppet was holding a jade plate in its hand. It stood there blankly. Its black eyes were like black jade, without a trace of life. Deming, martial uncle. Rinju pondered for a moment and said, "It has been several months since the messenger of the Xian Sword sect left our Taiqing sect. According to the news from the Changbai sect, the image in the flying sword message was Lu Weigang. But Lu Weigang was driven out of the Hao realm by our Taiqing sect, and he didn't return to the Changbai sect." Deming opened his eyes slightly and looked at Rinju, saying in a low voice, "Rinju, do you still need to say this? If Lu Weigang returned to the Changbai sect, how could he kill 2 sword cultivators? Besides, he is only a 12th layer disciple, not even a foundation building disciple. How could he be a match for 2 sword cultivators at the middle stage of the foundation building realm? Then, I don't understand. Who in the 3 cultivation kingdoms has the strength? Oh no, who has the guts to kill 2 sword cultivators from afar? This is obviously a conflict between the sword cultivators and the Taoist sect." Rinju shook her head slightly. "Let the Changbai sect have a headache. The Feather Immortal Conference hosted by our Taiqing sect has ended. We have done what we should do. We have received the 2 sword cultivators with great hospitality and exchanged what we should with them. The messenger of the Xian Sword sect can't find any fault with it." Deming frowned, speaking of the conflict between the 2 sects. It has been going on since ancient times. But for the past few hundred years, the millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountain have restrained the sword cultivators. Our Taoist sect has invested a lot in the demon-resisting valley, so there hasn't been a big mess. Since the demon-resisting valley will be mentioned after 1,000 years, how can our Taoist sect be afraid of the sword cultivators? "Martial uncle, you are right." Rinju nodded and said, "Sword cultivators are always arrogant and unreasonable. This time, they sent a messenger to win the argument. I'm afraid they have no time to care about us. Our Taoist sect doesn't lack etiquette. Our Taiqing sect has sent disciples to contact other sects and sects to confirm that they have nothing to do with the disappearance of the 2 sword cultivators. Who will be afraid of the sword cultivators? Look, the 2 sword cultivators of the 2nd grade of the illusory sword realm have been searching the Dawn Rain continent for more than a year, but they didn't find anything either, right? He, the leader of the Changbai sect, Yun Mengzi, is furious. He has to face the questioning of the Xian Sword sect and send disciples to interrogate and search for Lu Weigang's whereabouts. As long as Lu Weigang is not found, the Changbai sect is afraid that the Xian Sword sect will come to their door. Deming smiled. Although the 2 of us managed to find the whereabouts of the Feather Immortal Conference, we didn't make any mistakes and were rewarded by the leader. This is a small regret, and the leader has no intention to ask about it." Hearing this, Rinju's thoughts moved. She scanned with her divine sense and said in a low voice, "There are no mistakes, but there are some accidents." "Yes." Deming nodded. "The sword embryo was taken away by Xiao Hua of the Imperial Thunder Sect. This is really unexpected." "That's not all," Rinju said as she patted her storage bag and took out a diamond-shaped crystal. "An illusion formation image?" Deming was dazed. Could it be There are traces of Lu Weigang inside. Didn't the messenger of the Xian sword sect already see it? Martial uncle, don't be impatient. Renju patted her hand, and a picture scroll appeared in the air. It was the battle between Xiaohua and the Taiqing sect disciple, He Fang Yuan. Chapter 1673. After watching the battle between Xiaohua and He Fang Yuan, Deming's eyes flashed with a strange light. He nodded slightly and said, "This Xiaohua has a merciful heart. His control of strength is also very flexible. He can actually stop the force of 10,000 kilograms at the most critical moment. Only this kind of realm, where a cultivator is at death's door, can give birth to a trace of life, and touch a trace of hope of foundation establishment in cultivation. If there is only one, I can also see it as occasional. But the two people who fought Xiaohua were both foundation establishment cultivators. This is a problem." Renju put away the diamond-shaped crystal and said in a low voice, "Disciple also suspected that this Xiaohua is a person with great ability." How is that possible?" Deming said in surprise. "Of course, when Xiaohua raised the sword embryo, I clearly saw that he was at the initial stage of Qi refinement realm. Could it be he can deceive foundation establishment and even golden core cultivators?" Renju smiled and said, "Disciple also thought so before. However, the disciple I sent to Imperial Thunder Sect to ask Jin Qing about sword cultivation brought back news that Xiaohua started to build his foundation not long after he returned to Imperial Thunder Sect." Hearing about building his foundation, Deming nodded slightly, but Renju's words made him stunned. "Unfortunately, Xiaohua failed to build his foundation." How is that possible?" Deming unexpectedly said, "How is that possible?" for the second time. "This Qi refinement disciple is a genius. He was born with divine strength and can easily help others build their foundation. How could he fail to build his foundation?" Renju smiled bitterly. How could this matter be wrong? Xiaohua indeed failed to build his foundation and became the laughingstock of Imperial Thunder Sect. Sigh, heaven is playing with people. Deming shook his head. Heaven is the most playful. Presumably, Xiaohua himself didn't think he couldn't build his foundation, right? Right. Deming suddenly remembered and said in a low voice, "The matter of Xiaohua helping others build their foundation must be kept a secret for the time being. He disciple knows." Renju smiled. "Xiaohua isn't our Taiqing sect disciple. How can disciples show off this matter? Xiaohua probably doesn't even know his own value. If Imperial Thunder Sect finds out, who knows how many foundation establishment disciples they can create." Deming was a bit confused. Renju naturally knew what Deming was thinking. She hurriedly transmitted her voice to him. I've also asked my disciples to try this method. How is it? This one of them was killed by the hammer. Renju smiled bitterly and said, "The other two didn't have any effect. AI foundation establishment. It's not that simple." Deming heaved a long sigh. Perhaps this Xiaohua also encountered it. What does He Fang Yuan say? He Fang Yuan himself was also confused. He only felt an endless force pressing down on his body. He suddenly woke up and his true qi began to condense. Renju naturally asked He Fang Yuan and said, he also didn't know if it was Xiaohua's intention or not. Even golden core cultivators like us can't do anything about it. How can an aura refining disciple like him do anything about it? I'm not looking down on aura refining cultivators. Deming shook his head. This matter was indeed inconceivable. If someone could control the foundation establishment, then how could there be so few foundation establishment cultivators? This disciple has the same thoughts. Renju smiled apologetically and said, unfortunately, these images can't be recorded. Moreover, there's no image of Changbai Sect's Fantong and Xiaohua's battle. Otherwise, we could have looked at it carefully. We still have to pay attention to Imperial Thunder Sect's Xiaohua. Although he has nothing to do with sword cultivation, if there's really a possibility, as long as there's a possibility that he's related to foundation establishment, we can't relax. Deming said, "Yes, I understand." Renju nodded. Imperial Thunder Sect doesn't know Xiao Hua's importance, and Xiao Hua killed Fan Tong. Changbai Sect's Taoist Jing Ru probably won't let this matter go. At that time, our Tai Ching sect might have a chance. A aura refining disciple. If we give him some benefits, and he can have a place to settle down, he'll probably obediently join our Tai Ching sect, right? And if we find a golden core disciple to be his master, how could he not be happy? If he can really help our Tai Ching sect's aura refining disciple reach foundation establishment as shown in the illusion, that would be a great merit. Deming smiled. Then his brows relaxed, and he closed his eyes again. Renju then transmitted her voice to him. No one knew what they were talking about. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, several years had passed. In the three kingdoms of cultivation, many strange things had happened in the kingdom of Shi, kingdom of Meng, and kingdom of Lian. No one knew how many powerful cultivators had fallen. During the Feather Immortal Gathering, the two missing sword cultivators had not been forgotten yet, but very few people had mentioned them. Even Duan Yuming and Wang Shuyao had searched many places and forced the Changbai sect into a state of chaos. However, they only had the images of flying swords. Lu Weigang seemed to have disappeared even more cleanly than the two sword cultivators. Not a single trace of him could be found. Furthermore, the Xinjian sect was restrained by millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountain and had no time to be distracted. Gradually, the Changbai sect slacked off and ignored Duan Yuming and Wang Shuyao. The two sword cultivators had no choice but to slowly search in the three kingdoms of cultivation. Furthermore, the Xiaoyu continent was vast. With their strength, they wouldn't be able to travel all over it, even after several decades. One day, in the myriad Thunder Valley, Helplessness sat on a jade chair with a gloomy face and asked Xiang Yang coldly, "Where's that little bastard? Is he still fooling around in the book pavilions of the lightning palaces?" Xiang Yang didn't dare to be negligent. He quickly stood up and bowed. "Yes, Master knows. Little junior brother has been cultivating diligently these past few years in order to build his foundation. He hasn't slacked off." Hasn't slacked off? Then he's not doing his job properly. Helplessly, he slapped the jade chair and said angrily, "What did you do after you failed to build your foundation? How did this little brat do it? It's not like I haven't built my foundation before. Can't I tell with one look?" Embarrassed, Xiang Yang said, "Little junior brother is different from me. Different my ass." Helplessly, he scolded, "That little bastard isn't even as good as you. At least you built your foundation after 50 years. That little bastard probably can't even build his foundation after 500 years. Sigh, why was I late that year? That Wang Yinxiao was chosen by me first. Why did I choose a disciple with a loose cultivator background? He really made me lose all my face." "Husband." Beside him, Zhuo Minghui asked curiously, "After you scolded Xiao Hua last time, didn't you say you didn't want to see him anymore? You don't want to worry about him anymore? Why did you suddenly mention Xiao Hua today?" You think I was willing to see him last time? If Martial Uncle Jin Xing didn't have something to ask him, I wouldn't see that little bastard." Helplessly, he snorted and said, "Just now, Jinyu sent me a message. His disciple, Wang Yinxiao, has also built his foundation." "Ah, that the disciple that Master originally fancied?" Xiang Yang exclaimed. Xiang Yang didn't open his mouth, but once he did, helplessly shouted angrily, "That's right, it's all my bad luck." Just as Helplessly was about to get angry, a thunder sound transmitting talisman flew in from outside the cave. Helplessly unhappily patted the talisman and heard Jin Xing's voice, "Martial nephew Helplessly, where's Xiao Hua now? Tell him to come see me." Helplessly, he crushed the sound transmitting talisman and his expression didn't change. "Martial Uncle Jin Xing really cares about that little bastard. Last time, I heard she even personally comforted him." Soon after, he waved his hand and another thunder sound transmitting talisman was sent out. Obviously, he wanted to find Xiao Hua. Seeing that his master was sending a sound transmitting talisman, Xiang Yang hurriedly wanted to stop him, but it was already too late. The thunder sound, transmitting talisman, flew out of Helplessly's hand and circled around the cave before flying back. Seeing that Helplessly was about to change his expression again, Xiangyang hurriedly went forward and said, "Master, I don't know which Thunder Palace's library little junior martial brother is in. There are restrictions in there. I'm afraid sound transmitting talismans won't work. It's better for me to go find him personally." Oof. Helplessly, in his rage, came to a realization. If he could find Xiao Hua, why would Jin Xing send him a sound transmitting talisman? Go. Hurry up and let that little bastard escape from the pile of old books. He can't build his foundation even if he hides there for 500 years. Seeing that the 5-year foundation establishment experiential learning is about to begin, let him prepare and go out with the other disciples. Helplessly sighing, he waved his sleeves and let Xiangyang go out. Xiangyang and Yin Qinglian left the cave. Yin Qinglian took out several invisibility talismans from her storage pouch and handed them to Xiangyang. Husband, bring these invisibility talismans to little junior martial brother. The foundation establishment experiential learning is different from other things. With the help of these invisibility talismans, his chances of success will increase a bit. Okay. Xiangyang took them and put them into his storage pouch. He said in a low voice, "Half a year ago, little junior martial brother said he wanted to go to the Heavenly Thunder Palace's library. I wonder if he's there now." I don't know what's wrong with little junior martial brother. What's there to see in the library? He's already read it once before. This time, he spent 5 years reading it again. Yin Qinglian also sighed. Using these 5 years to cultivate, maybe. Xiangyang waved his hand to stop Yin Qinglian from saying anything more. He himself flew up and used the hibernating thunder escape to fly towards the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Xiangyang's realm had stepped into the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. He had also gradually mastered the hibernating thunder evasion. Even though it was still a lot worse than Xiao Hua's hibernating thunder evasion from 5 years ago, he had, after all, started cultivating the thunder evasion technique. But what about Xiao Hua 5 years later? Right now, he was in the Heavenly Thunder Palace's star-like library. He was sending a jade slip into the void. Afterwards, he sat down cross-legged and recalled in detail. Only after a long while did he open his eyes. He let out a long breath and said to himself, "The Grand Universe Shifting Command." That command arrow was actually the incomplete Grand Universe Shifting Command. If I hadn't read the records of the 8 Great Thunder Palaces, how would I have been able to deduce it? The records of the 8 Great Thunder Palaces' ancient books are also strange. Cultivation techniques and the like are divided into realms, but travel notes, strange stories, and the like are not divided into realms. Anyone who can enter the library can read it. But I have read these ancient books for 5 years, and actually, I haven't met a single disciple who came to look at them. Could it be that they don't know that reading an ancient book is equivalent to traveling once? Xiaohua also didn't feel any pain. 5 years, how good would it be to use it to cultivate? Who would waste 5 years of time to read some ancient book for no reason? Even when Zhen Xie and the others examined the ruins of the Buddhist sect, they were also cultivating. After all, they didn't have fire essence flame crystals, right? That you're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.